This committee of the whole meeting of Monday, June the 15th is called to order. May I have a motion, please, to adopt the agenda of this meeting of June the 15th? Councillor Thompson, second. Councillor Ross.
A point of clarification, Mr. Mayor. There it is. Section 4E, it says December 2012, the city is successful in its application for federal gas tax funding of $1.3 million to cover the cost of water meter installation program. I believe that the city has never received a full gas tax grant for this program, that it was accumulated gas tax funding that was used for the program.
Mr. Mayor, we applied for the grant and we did not receive the grant. The city applied for a gas tax funding grant. I believe, I wasn't here at the time, but I know that the application was unsuccessful. We were notified in October or November of 2014, but we did not receive the funding for the universal water meter grant for the gas tax funding.
Right, so I'd just like to make an amendment to the agenda to state that this was accumulated gas tax funding and not a specific grant that was received for the program.
Do I hear a second?
A point of clarification, is that with respect to the request for decision?
Yes, if you look under section 4E,
Yes.
On the background section, and you go down to December 2012.
Okay, I just wondered if this is the appropriate place to make that amendment, or if it should be done when the report is received. Discussion.
I'd just like to have the agenda correct before it's adopted. I believe that's the point of it, accepting the agenda, is to state that we agree that everything in it is accurate.
Can I have just a late item? Make the motion to add it as a late item.
I don't believe it's a separate item. I believe that it's the item that's on the agenda already that just needs to be amended to state that it was accumulated gas tax funding for the program.
Just give me a minute, I can find it and I'll clarify that. What page is it on?
4E.
Yeah, just, yes, if we're going to amend that, which sounds correct to me, I think we would do it when we actually hit that report, because when we're accepting an agenda, we're doing items, so it's not.
Exactly, because the items
So
are
I
broken
think
down.
we should deal with it when we get there and amend it. There is no page.
Yes, there is no.
But it's 4. I see.
Okay, so all in favor of passing the agenda as so carried. Moving around to our additions and delegations. Our first item is Mr. Gray's grade 9 science class to share their projects regarding water. That motion I would like is to the committee of the whole receive the presentation from Mr. Gray's grade 9 science class. Mr. Thompson, Councillor Prague.
I believe Mr. Gray's here.
All right.
Good morning, Mr. Gray.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for having us here. So we're presenting, as you know already, you were kind enough to come to the high school and see their first round of presentations. We're presenting based on a new endeavor in education called problem-based learning, or PBL for short. It's an idea where students kind of take the learning into their own hands. And what I did was I presented the topic of water and water quality, and the students came up with their own burning questions or problems, and then they pursued to solve them. So we've spent about 6 weeks with this experience, and I have a couple students here who would like to share their final product with you. So if I could have Oksana Stuchnov present first.
Good morning.
Good morning. So, Mr. Mayor, my research question is, how can we increase the amount of people in the world who have easy accessibility to clean drinking water?
put this in there. So.
In front of you is a glass of water. Living where we are very privileged. Many people would look at this picture and quickly dismiss it, as to them it is just a glass of water. 748 million people in the world do not have access to safe drinking water. Around 1,400 children in the world die every day because they do not have the water they need. So much clean water is wasted and polluted for absolutely no reason. We must begin to understand how important water is and respect it, as nothing living on planet Earth can survive without it. Clean water is a luxury. Looking at pictures of a beautiful blue planet, it appears to be completely filled with water, but looks can be deceiving. If you could imagine that the Earth was the size of a basketball, all of its water supply would fit to a ping pong ball. And according to Gallo, if the Earth was an apple, the water layer would be thinner than the fruit's skin. 97.5% of the world's water is salt, leaving only 2.5% of the world's water fresh. However, only less than 1% of the world's water supply is available for human use, as the rest is captured in frozen ice caps. That's close to 70% of the world's freshwater inaccessible to humans. 1/3 of the world's population of people live in water-stressed countries. This picture shows the number of months that people in a particular area have no access to water. Imagine living in a place where there is practically no water all year round. That is all the burgundy spots on the map. There are about 360,000 babies born in the world every day. There's an estimate that by 2050 there will be a serious demand in the world for water. Everyone deserves to have clean water, which is how much water gets wasted. Most shower heads use 20 liters of water per minute. That's 200 liters for a 10-minute shower. And newer shower heads use half of that, with 10 liters of water per minute, still using 100 liters for a 10-minute shower. An average bathtub uses about 132 to 182 liters of water, so actually taking the occasional bath would save quite a bit of water. And as for dripping sinks, if your sink drips 1 drop per minute, that'll add up to 1,440 drops per day, which will all add up to 129 liters per year. And a more frequent dripping at 20 drips per minute, that'll add up to 2,880 drops per day, which is 7 liters a day, and will all add up to 2,627 liters per year. So it is worth fixing your dripping sink. As it is nice to have a bright green lawn or really long hot showers, it's important to understand how much water is used just for one person's desires. Lake Baikal is the world's largest freshwater lake by volume, at 23,000 cubic kilometers. It contains 20% of the world's freshwater. It is also the deepest lake on Earth, as it goes down more than 1.5 kilometers in some places. And apparently, it can provide the world's population of people with drinking water for 50 years. Most freshwater icebergs are clean, as most of them were formed before the Industrial Revolution. But 70% of the world's freshwater is trapped in icebergs. Why would people get water from them? The high cost of fuel and ship maintenance caused many to abandon the project. The tugboat sinking. Icebergs crack and break apart suddenly, sending large waves that can sink the boat. The icebergs melt. So lowering icebergs to warmer air and water caused the iceberg to melt greatly, increasing their destruction. So at first thought, you would think, besides the iceberg melting a little and the high cost of ship maintenance, what's a big deal? It would bring people water. But the serious fact about iceberg time is that it can damage ecosystems. If large amounts of ships start to regularly visit polar waters, this activity would damage wildlife. It is the great pollution in the water. As an iceberg nears its destination, it may break apart, crushing underwater communities on the seafloor. Also, as the iceberg melts, large volumes of very cold water would enter warmer waters, harming local ecosystems. If you're thinking about water shortage while looking out at the beautiful ocean, the answer seems obvious. But drinking salt water can kill you. Your cells will be depleted of moisture and your kidneys will shut down. But turning seawater into drinkable water for humans, is it possible? Desalination, also known as desalinization and desalting, is the process of producing fresh water by removing dissolved salts from the water. Desalination is not a modern science and was used by man in the earliest of times as it can be as easy as boiling a pot of water and capturing the steam. This method was used on ships. And today there are existing desalination stations around the world. And here's one in Dubai. Through the years, the process is made easier with various technologies. And one of the simplest low-touch approaches to desalinate water is using a solar still. A solar still is a thermal form of desalination. It's a simple technology. You just have to fill the tank with water. The heat will cause the water to evaporate. Afterwards, it'll condense. Then the fresh water will drain down into a thorough. So here's some more examples of thermal desalination that also work with evaporation. It's just a little bit more detailed. Evaporation is natural desalination. Desalination occurs naturally around us all the time. The salt particles are too heavy to be carried up with the water. And this is what thermal desalination relies on. According to the International Desalination Association, there are now 13,000 desalination plants in the world. Between 10 and 13 billion gallons of water are desalinated in the world every day. But that is not enough. That is only about 0.2% of global water consumption. Way back in the 4th century BC, Aristotle imagined using filters to remove salt from seawater. Researchers have been developing different kinds of membranes that could filter out salt since the 1950s, similar to what Aristotle envisioned. This membrane technique is now called reverse osmosis. It works by putting pressure on one end so that the water gets pushed through a semi-permeable membrane with microscopical holes. Reverse osmosis is now an alternate to thermal desalination. There's a $1 billion desalination project being built in California. They'll provide 189,270,589 liters of drinking water a day for San Diego area when it opens in 2016. So how would these desalination plants work exactly? They'll start with pumping the seawater. Millions of gallons of seawater a day come in through intake pipes. Protective screens minimize sucking in sea life and large debris. Then it's pre-treatment time. Water is filtered for sediments, bacteria, and viruses. Solid waste is sent to a landfill. Then the water is desalinated through reverse osmosis. More than 99% of the salt and minerals is removed. The wastewater, brine, the remaining water from desalination, is more salty than the seawater, so it is mixed with industrial wastewater or other seawater to reduce its salinity before it is returned to the sea. Then the water is sent to post-treatment. The water is chlorinated, minerals can be added to match the existing taste of water, and the water is ready to be stored and delivered. So what's stopping people from desalinating their water? The highest cost that I came across was $10 billion, which was spent by Australia to build desalination plants. And also the frequent problem with desalination is that you need more than you get. So for every 2 gallons of seawater, you only get 1 gallon of fresh water. Also, desalination plants use an enormous amount of energy. To force 100 million gallons of seawater through a series of filters a day, it would need about 38 megawatts of power. That is enough to power 28,500 homes. Also, it costs an average family about $2,000 a year to desalinate their water. And the cost of desalination in Singapore is 56 cents a cubic meter, but it all adds up. So it is common knowledge that water is a compound made of 2 hydrogen atoms and 1 oxygen atom. So why can't water just be made? You can't make water by smashing together oxygen and hydrogen. You'll still be left with separate atoms. To make water, the orbits of each of the atoms must be linked. To do this, we need to have a sudden burst of energy. Since hydrogen is extremely flammable and oxygen supports combustion, all you need is a spark, and voila, water. But with the water, you'll also come an explosion, and depending on the size of the experiment, it could be deadly. Max Whisson, an Australian inventor, created the Whisson windmill. This machine uses wind power to capture water out of the air. It is also known to be completely green. Water vapors are placed naturally every few hours as part of the water cycle. And the blades of the Whisson windmill use a compressed refrigerant system to cool them. This is called max water. The cool blades cool the air, causing the water vapor to condense, turning back into its liquid form. Then this condensation is collected and stored. As much as 9,842 liters of water can be collected from the air per day with the Whisson windmill. The Whisson windmill will cost $43,000 per unit. So as I could not find a particular place that actually sells these windmills, I came to the conclusion that it's still in theoretical stages, but definitely I'd possibility of the near future, the Whistle Windmill is a brilliant invention that could change the way we look at water shortage. Right here's a picture of what the Whistle Windmill looks like. And this is a simplified version of what the Whistle Windmill does. It will come in and go through the cooling system, afterwards it'll condense and turn back into its liquid form. When desalinating water, most of the minerals are removed along with the salt. So it's drinking water that is completely pure good for you. Drinking water that is completely pure, just H2O, will result in it trying to take electrolytes out of your blood, and this can eventually kill you. So minerals are what makes water water. Minerals are very important for human health. Some important minerals to have in water: magnesium, sodium, potassium, and bicarbonate. So getting back to my main question, how can we increase the amount of people in the world who have easy accessibility to clean drinking water? I talked about different technologies that could help solve our problem of water shortage, but the biggest problem that I could see standing in the way was money. But will we as humans really let other people around the world die of thirst every day because of money? It is our duty to reach out to people in need. Or at the very least, never to leave sprinklers on all day and reduce the length of showers. It's little things, like not leaving the water running while you're brushing your teeth. That would all add up to make a big difference. In other words, we must do everything to save our precious water. And remember, that clean water is a luxury.
Mr. Mayor, are there any questions for Oksana's presentation?
Lady in the front.
I have a question. Oksana, I can't see you. Where are you? Would you agree that in terms of what we can do locally to conserve water, that making sure existing water leaks are taken care of is a top priority?
Yes, definitely.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Lady in the second row.
Hi, Oksana, I was curious in your research. I'm hearing that we can cut down our usage, say, so more is available from our sources underground or elsewhere. Did you also come across material that had to do with our polluting our water and the amount used for fracking and things like that, and trying to cut down on taking out the oil and the gas out of the ground to decrease the amount of pollution in water? Did you see anything like that in there?
I didn't really go into much specifics, but definitely preventing pollution from the water is really important.
Okay.
Because water shouldn't be just wasted like that.
Okay, thank you.
Could I please ask the gallery to identify themselves when they ask a question?
Okay, Donna
For the record.
Semenoff.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Do I have any other questions or concerns? Councillor Butler.
I just wanted to thank you for your report. I thought you were very poised as you were presenting. You must be nervous here before everybody, and you did a really good job, and you had a lot of great facts in there. So thanks for your research, and I hope you'll continue to look into it. It is a really important question for our world today, and I think we're in good hands with people like you.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions or concerns? Mr. Gray, do you have any other students that would like to present something?
Yes, yes, I do. So I know we're on a tight schedule, but sometimes technology lets us down. We're just getting up the second presentation now, and one of the really neat things about problem-based learning is that the path is completely directed by the students. So as Oksana's research took her down the path of looking at how can we get more water available for others in the world, Sam Foy's path took him down a different path where he was looking at comparing the pros and cons of well water as opposed to a public system water. If it pleases you, we'll have Sam present that.
Yes. Good morning, Sam.
I don't actually know if this is going to work, so I'm just going to try it. But I looked into how well water and the public water system are different, and how we can improve both. Where does well water come from? Most well water comes from aquifers under the ground, which can be an advantage since it's naturally filtered by the soil. So less cost, more environmental. Although we don't experience much drought here, but in places like California recently we're experiencing drought. Well water can decrease because the soil is less fertile. Positives of well water, it can contain minerals that are beneficial to our health, like Oksana was saying, because it's filtered through the soil. It's more eco-friendly because it doesn't involve like chemical procedures that take away the bacteria or whatever. And it's less expensive. The negatives, you're responsible for the sanitation of your well water, so if you're not checking it for potability or hardness, it's recommended, like, depending on how deep your well water is, like every 5 years or so, it can, like, here it can have high levels of manganese, which I'll talk about later, but yeah. And then where does public water come from? Pretty much the same place. The positives is it's convenient because it's looked after by the city and waterworks and stuff. It's reliable and it's constantly tested, and it has to follow like BC health regulations and things like that. And the 6 steps to clean public water. This is a common way of cleaning our water. This is how it gets to our taps when we turn it on. It enters a plant with a large screen that screens out anything like sticks, leaves, twigs, different things like that. Then it's allowed to rest so that all the particles suspended in the water settle to the bottom, and then gets rid of it that way. Precipitation, I guess ions are added to the water, and they're removed. Honestly, I don't really understand this process, but filtration, the water impurities that are left are filtered out just using a simple filter with gravel and sand. Absorption, to eliminate any organic substances left, they add activated carbon, and that removes any impurities left in the water. Disinfection, low levels of chlorine are added to kill any organisms or bacteria left. How to improve well and public water. It's hard to give one solid answer on how to improve the quality of well water because every person's well is different. I think getting the knowledge out there about the importance of clean water and getting your well water tested is probably the key. There's so many things that can make well water dangerous to health if it's not potable. For example, I don't think that it's common knowledge how detrimental high levels of fluoride or substances like chlorine can be to your health. Understanding what minerals and substances are in your water and how you can get rid of them is key. And I don't think too many people, they turn on their tap, the water tastes fine, and they just think, okay, well, I guess it's fine. But many of the things are like you can't detect them you can't see them, you can't taste them. It's unrealistic to narrow for public water. It's unrealistic to narrow down into one solution because it's such a broad question. Many different cities have different methods of cleaning their water. It's kind of in your area what different things, like I know in ground fortune we have a high level of manganese, so what strategies are going to help you improve your well water and what's more cost efficient and stuff, because in different areas there's different things to your water. There needs to be a better understanding of how the water is used and how the water gets to their taps. I know our class took a trip down to the water, what was it called? Yeah, and it gave me a real appreciation for the hard work that goes into getting our water. And if you're just using it to wash down your driveway or something, that's clean water that you're just throwing down the drain. And I think if people had a better understanding of how it gets to their taps, they would have more appreciation for it. This is a interesting method that I came across for how to reuse water. It's called the gray water system. I don't know if you guys have heard of it before. It's where things like your dishwasher, your shower, or your clothes washer. It's filtered. There's a junction where instead of the water just going right back to the plant, it filters into a septic tank and then just a simple sand filter. You can, if you're using it for things like clothes wash, you can buy like different soaps and stuff that are eco-friendly, and then the water just pumped into just like a simple sand filter to get rid of like the big sedimentation. And then it's pumped. Say if you have a garden or something like that, there's like soaker hoses that it's pumped through, and then as you use your shower or whatever, it's just constantly soaking into your flower pot or whatever you want to use, and that's a better way than just turning on your sprinkler and using clean water for. These are just water tests I tested. This is mine. I live on a well. I have I just got it tested at YNR here. I have a water softener, so my total hardness is 0. Everything's pretty low, and that's good. This is my friend Tieran. He doesn't have a water softener. His manganese, I was saying our manganese here in Grand Forks is high. His is high as well. The recommended level for manganese by BC Health is 0.05, and this is 0.3. So that's almost what's that? 6 times the amount. And same with our public water has high manganese too. I don't know. I was thinking it's probably not cost efficient to install a water filter to filter out manganese, but some of the downsides of it is it can actually cause bacteria to grow more, or I guess to grow more than if the water didn't have manganese. It can lead to all sorts of health problems like high blood pressure and things. That's in really high levels though. Yeah, that's pretty much it, I think. Yeah, so thank you guys for listening.
Mr. Mayor, are there any questions for Sam's presentation?
Any questions? Councillor Butler.
Thanks, Sam. I heard you touched on the point that excess fluoride and chlorine can be detrimental to health. Is there anything else you can tell us about that?
Yeah, well, different things like iron, chlorine. Iron can high blood pressure, heart problems. Chlorine actually, well, I guess they used to use like higher levels of chlorine to filter water and get rid of the bacteria, but now they use other methods because it can lead to cancer. It's a cancer-causing chemical. I'm actually not too sure how much chlorine we use here in Grand Forks, but yeah, I know that it can, like iron can lead to high blood pressure, heart failure. That's in really high amounts though, but yeah, I'm sure they're regulated now.
Lady in the front.
Bev Tripp, when you did your studying of what was in the water, did you happen to find out anything about nitrates? Were there elevated levels of nitrates at all in the water in Grand Forks?
No, I didn't come across that at all, actually. Sorry.
Councillor Hamett.
You said that manganese, the level's like 0.1 in the city water and 0.3 in your friend's well water was considered high because it should be like 0.05 or something?
0.05, yeah.
So, is the detrimental effects, is it cumulative? Or does your body burn out that manganese? Like, I mean, if you were to get it in a higher doses, say, like you said, it would be harmful if it was in much higher doses. But in the small doses that we're getting now, did you find any
No,
residual?
in smaller doses, like the ones we have here, it's not going to cause any serious health concerns. But in higher doses, it can. The more bigger concern, I guess, here is that I guess it creates a good environment for bacteria to grow. And so, you know, a filter to filter out manganese, I don't know what that would look like, but it would probably cost a lot of money. Although, would you be saving money because the bacteria levels aren't as high in the water? So, I don't know.
And is there a recommended treatment that you say your well should be tested every 5 years?
Yeah.
Is there a specific treatment that you would normally do for maintenance in a well?
Not unless if your well didn't have any high levels of anything, I guess. No, but if you had, say, high levels of iron, you'd have to buy an iron filter. Depending on how deep your well is and how much water you're pumping out per minute, it depends on how big the filter would have to be. But regular, I think it's around $2,500 for a standard iron filter if you had high levels of iron, and that'll last the rest of your life.
So a standard water filter that attaches to your flow would not necessarily, with the charcoal filter, would not necessarily solve the problem.
No, not necessarily.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Very good presentation.
Any other questions? I'd like to thank Oksana and Sam for your wonderful presentation. Well done. I'd like to thank Mr. Gray for bringing students forward and giving this wonderful presentation today.
Thank you very much for having us. It's great to be here.
So we have a motion on the table to receive the presentations. All in favor? So carried. Our second item is the support on non-motorized designation of the Trans-Canada Trail from Grand Forks to Cascade. The recommendation is council receive the presentation from Chris Moslin of the Grand Forks Community Trail Society.
Yes.
Good morning, Mr. Moslin.
Good morning, Mayor. Good morning, council, staff, and the gallery. I'm here on behalf of the Grand Forks Community Trail Society to ask the city to write a letter to provincial staff to formally designate the Trans-Canada Trail between Grand Forks and Christina Lake non-motorized. As part of the this process, we had a meeting earlier this year in April, which involved provincial staff, elected officials from around the boundary to discuss this designation. And we came to a fairly pretty good agreement on it. The meeting was sponsored by our group, the Trail Society, as well as the GFATV Club, as well as the provincial staff. That is the Ministry of Forests, Lands, Natural Resource Operations, Rec Site, and Trails. So we were putting our heads together. We had this meeting. Before I get into that, so what is the Kettle River Heritage Trail? Well, it's the paving upgrade to the existing Trans-Canada Trail from Grand Forks to Cascade in 3 phases. Now, the city has already invested in this and has completed phase 1 in 2013. The value of that project, I put it around $300,000 if you count to the contributions by the province, by the city, and by Roxall, as well as the Trans-Canada Trail Foundation. Then the following year, the nursery trestle was redecked at a value of about $35,000, and those costs were shared by Funro and the RDKB. Ahead of us is phase 2, is a 7.1 kilometers from nursery trestle to Gilpin Creek. Currently, it's a crushed gravel trail that was put in as part of the Southern Crossing. The crush is not in too bad a shape. The further east you go, though, what happens is the crush has become overgrown, and it's difficult for anybody less than a hardy cyclist to navigate. Phase 3 would be the 8.3 kilometers from Gilpin Creek to Cascade Trestle. Trail designations are different from all around the world. This is taken from the National Trails Council's report on trails within Canada. so that you could see the different types of trails. The single-use non-motorized, 25%, single-use motorized, 49%. You can see that that is indeed if you just talk about the length of trails, that is the majority. Shared use non-motorized is 8%, and that of course is where we're trying to get to with this designation. And shared use motorized, 17%, and we have shared use motorized trails. In fact, our Trail Society manages about 10 kilometers of multi-use trail. So why do we need this non-motorized designation? Well, the bottom line is we need it to bring in money. The provincial government has made it quite clear that they will not put money into a multi-use surface. That is, if you're going to have vehicle traffic on it, they're not going to put on new crush or pavement or anything. And this is the struggle that we have from Grand Forks to Eagle. Because we have as a multi-use trail, and we're managing it as a multi-use trail, and shared with motorized users, outdoor recreational vehicles, we cannot get the surface improved. But because the stretch between Grand Forks and Christina Lake passes through 2 provincial parks where motorized use is also illegal or not permitted, and in respect of that, the ATV Club has pushed their members away from that area, or not. So we have a chance to improve the section there to attract provincial money in a large-scale investment. We would like to create this world-class pedestrian trailer corridor, and that will, we believe it will dramatically increase usage and really accommodate our community economically. You're probably aware of the Okanagan Rail Trail that's happening, that's being worked on, and in between Kelowna and Vernon. This too, there's going to be a lot of money pumped into that trail because that region of central Okanagan believes it's going to be a real benefit economically and socially to their region. So how do we get this designation? Well, basically what we need to do is demonstrate public support for non-motorized designation. And then what we do is we demonstrate that by writing rec sites and trails, and that what they will do is when they get your letters, they will organize public meetings and discussions with adjacent landowners. It won't be the Trail Society doing those meetings or doing those discussions. It will be rec sites and trails. After they've done that process, which they're looking at doing this summer, they will take the whole process and they will put it in front of the minister. It's actually the minister's decision to designate it non-motorized. And the reason why we're putting this process all together is because they really want to make sure they have the public support before they make that designation. If you're familiar with the Naramata section of the trail, they basically had a bunch of groups meet, and they designated it non-motorized, and then the public raised an outcry about it. So now they really want to consult with the public before they get the designation. It is a hoop that we're jumping through, no question. Anyhow, how do we demonstrate this public support? Well, with your letters, of course. The Boundary Trails Agreement is a significant milestone that different trails groups put together a few years back, and we're trying to honor that agreement and moving forward as a group. And we're moving with these letters and public meetings. It is important, we think, and we have really made the point at the April 17th meeting, that there starts to be a regional strategy for trails. In fact, the area director for Area E has already started to move forward with that and has hired a trail coordinator for her part of the region. And they formed a new society and now have a new stewardship group. I'm hoping that, that by putting together the elected officials of the boundary together, that eventually we will have a regional strategy about trails, not just pedestrian trails or cycling trails, but all trails, like is done in the regional district of Okanagan, Similkameen. I kind of feel that why are we, volunteers are making these decisions. Volunteers are petitioning governments for funds, and everything's kind of ad hoc, when really the overall strategy and direction should be set, in my belief, by elected officials. You are the ones that are accountable to the public, and that's where it should be. And it should be at your regional forum. But, that hasn't happened yet. I'm hoping it will in the time ahead of us, perhaps this term. Here's a possible letter that could write, and I just put it here. I guess basically the last paragraph, the city understands that the Fun Road Rec Sites and Trails will consult with adjacent landowners and conduct a public meeting to consult with the community prior to any designation. The city further understands that the eventual enforcement of this designation will be carried out by the province. And that, of course, is the major sentence. The enforcement will be the province. If the province designates it, the enforcement will be their problem. We don't see it, we don't anticipate a huge problem with enforcement. There's not a lot of motorized use on that section now. Like I say, the parks are very clear about non-motorized use. So we don't see a huge problem with it ahead of us, but there is, the province has got it. Okay? This is, what I'm asking you really is to do basically an extension of your own bylaw. The City of Grand Forks has a bylaw, 1682, that is already in place, that covers all sections of the Trans-Canada Trail within the city, that there should not be any motorized use in any parks, as well as any other parks maintained by the city. Now, of course, if you go take a look at that particular bylaw, there is a pretty good definition of motorized. What is a motor? Used, and the distinction is made between an outdoor recreational vehicle and a vehicle for mobility. Okay, so your little electric scooters and that sort of thing, motorized wheelchairs, are not designated as motorized vehicles. Anyhow, that's my presentation today. Like I said, I'm asking you to write a letter formally. The information to whom is with staff, and I stand ready for any questions or concerns you may have.
Councillor Hamett.
Thank you, Mr. Moslin. Last week, Thompson Okanagan Tourism made 2 presentations in the area, one in Rock Creek or Midway, and then in the evening they came and did a presentation in Christina Lake. I attended the Christina Lake presentation and came out of there quite bouncy because I was so happy with what I saw regarding what they had envisioned for here and the way they're looking at promoting the boundary area in the future. Yeah. And they talked extensively about the Trans-Canada Trail and the section between here and Grand Forks. This section of trail is probably the best section that they think that they have within the Thompson Okanagan region. And they're looking at promoting it, and it could take a couple of years down the road because they need to work with the provincial government on some of their crown land and with private landowners. But they're looking at what I see and what they're talking about is something like the El Camino Trail in Spain, which is going to be very exciting because it's going to bring a lot of people here for a destination. We have a lot here to offer in outdoor recreation, and if we can encourage that trail for those treks, and especially through the boundary, this is where we want them coming. They are working with telecommunication companies now to make sure that there's no dead zones anywhere on the trails, so that for emergency people for smartphones, so that people would be stranded. They're also looking at potential, talking hypothetically down the future where, you know, like somebody stays at a bed and breakfast in Grand Forks and they're going to spend the day hiking to Christina Lake. There's a service that takes their luggage or their backpack, so they're not carrying all of that on their back, to encourage more people. So that seems to be the focus that the Thompson Okanagan Tourism Association is taking, as well as other avenues of promoting this region throughout internationally. And so I think it's good timing, and it's a great subject.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. We haven't always been on the top of Toby's list.
Yeah.
So smile. And so I'm quite aware of that and quite appreciative of that, as well as the Boundary Economic Development Committee's priority to make trails a priority. You know, we do have a wealth of trails in this area, and we do need a region-wide strategy for all trails.
Yeah.
I see you all shaking your heads. I hope you push that forward with your colleagues in other elected constituencies to bring that to fruition.
Yes. Well, the meeting was only last week, so it didn't go into my councilor's report in this week, but I was hoping to be able to talk about it, and thank you for the opportunity. But it's something that I would like to see, and with all the stakeholders involved with Area D and the other regional districts that are involved, because it's going to be a combined effort amongst everybody.
Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Chris. I'm a big fan of the trails. I enjoy them. I've ridden from Greenwood to Christina Lake, and that's as far as I've been able to go. Although people are really, most people know that I'm a big fan of the internal combustion engine. I would like to see more of the trails designated for non-motorized vehicles. I think I had a discussion with you when I first arrived and expressed my frustration on being on the trails and having, in the summer, having ATVs or four-wheelers, and then in the winter having snowmobiles ruin my cross-country ski tracks. So I would definitely speak in support of this and encourage the city to write a letter to support this initiative. A question is that when you mentioned the meeting you went to, the ATV club was there. So what was that general feeling from the ATV enthusiasts here?
Well, not just the local ATV club was at the meeting, but also representatives from BC ATV here. And what they see here is a potential to have a draw for all kinds of trails. We have a wonderful motorized trail network, no question about it. It's been developed by the local group, whether it's up in the Gilpin Range or whether it's further up the North Fork. There is a tremendous catalog of trails that visitors can travel on motorized vehicles. There's no, and what we're trying to grow here, in this particular stretch, is a stretch that's non-motorized.
Right.
So we have both types of visitors coming. That's why, again, I reiterate that it's so important that we have a regional strategy, an overview of all of these trails, so that we can make those kind of decisions for our entire region. And Councillor Ross, it's a hard thing. I know the problem with this, and it is a problem that the province made. I'm looking at Councillor Krog because I know he talks about province speak all the time. The province said it was the Trans-Canada Trail and brought it in with big fanfare and all that sort of thing, but then they never made a law prohibiting recreational vehicles. So even though it was brought in as a non-motorized trail, the law never kept up. Consequently, over years, we've inherited this kind of problem. So we share it. We're trying to share. Our group shares the North Fork to Eagle section with motorized traffic. And it's problematic. We're trying the best we can. For the motorized traffic, that's a tremendous route because it's not just the trail. It's also the access to all the other places they can get to. They can get all the way to Jewel Lake going up that trail. We need to put in place etiquette and rules for a multi-use trail. We were very disappointed, not surprised, when the provincial government postponed yet again the licensing of outdoor recreational vehicles. You recall it was going to happen this June, and now it's pushed back to November. It's coming. It will help with the management.
Councillor Crock, with all due respect, councillors, we're going to have to speed this up a bit.
Yeah, sorry. I shall answer briefly.
Yes, you should answer briefly, just much like I do. Yeah. I would make a motion that we receive the presentation and that we forward the request for the support letter to the meeting this evening. And then we can vote on it.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Councillor Thompson.
If I can ask a question quickly.
Go ahead.
Mr. Moslin, reading the ATV report, it looked to me as though they are wanting the ability to have permitted use.
Yes.
And that's not going to be an issue with this?
It's not an issue with me now. I find it quite, their request for permitted use is quite understandable. We just had a rec department kids ride, a day ride, where they brought, I think, some 25 odd youngsters, started the Cascade, and they were accompanied with training vehicles.
Yeah.
Okay, no, I just, when you say not non-motorized, but you...
As a trails manager for years, I know you have to have motorized access.
Yeah, okay, no, that's fine.
I have a quick question, Mr. Moslin. When you refer to motorized, what's your terminology? ATVs, do electric scooters come in this, or motorized bicycles?
As I suggested with your bylaw, that outdoor a non-motorized vehicle would be something used for mobility purposes. So if you have an electronic wheelchair, electronic scooter, or a Sedgeway, something that's used for as a mobility device that the user would otherwise not be on the trail without it. That's the distinction I make.
Okay. Councillor?
I just want a clarification of what it is that Mr. Moslin would like from us. Is it a letter of support?
Yes, simply.
For the stretch to Christina Lake?
Yes.
Okay.
Lady in the second row.
Hi, Donna Semenoff. Just for clarification, I think Councillor Thompson mentioned permit. Does that mean like for a special event that they could go on there? Is that what you're referring to?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Gentleman in the third row.
Hi, my name is Brent Hummel. My concern would be is that if you broad sweep no motorized vehicles on that section, and then you get to the North Fork, and then you get here, I use those trails. I would be all in favor of proper etiquette and restrictions, with that, but I would not want a broad street saying no motorized vehicles at all, because I use that to get from A to B from my house, and I appreciate those trails, treat them with respect, but like them. And I go hundreds of miles, and often I don't see a soul. So I mean, if you're thinking that you're going to get 1 million people on these trails, probably not going to happen. I can go from my place, Jewel Lake, and back and not see one soul. So anyways, just a comment.
Thank you. So all in favor of the motion to receive the presentation? So carried. Thank you, Mr. Moslin, for your presentation. I'd like to call this meeting back to order. The next item on the agenda is some concerned residents of Grand Forks and surrounding areas. It's questions and concerns, suggestions that are presented in the Water Media Manifesto. Before going any further, I, Mayor Frank Conrad, wish to declare that at this time I wish to recuse myself. I'm not entitled to participate in the discussion or vote on the next item of business before this meeting. That is item number 3C on the meeting agenda, by reason of advisement from the corporation lawyers Young Anderson, based on their opinion of a perceived indirect pecuniary conflict of interest directed at myself. Also based on the advisement that the remainder of council should encourage me to recuse myself. Furthermore, I wish to invoke my right under the Community Charter Section 100 and 104 respectfully, that I, Mayor Conrad, am not declaring nor admitting to this perceived conflict of interest, for in my opinion as mayor, there is no conflict of interest and never was. Furthermore, may I please have no clapping. Order in the room, please. Further, for the record, this action obstructs my ability to perform my elected official duty as mayor for the citizens of Grand Forks. I will be presenting this to the acting or deputy corporate officer. I'll be appointing Councillor Hamett. No, July, August. He's Councillor Cross.
Yeah.
Yeah, June is Councillor
You're
Hamett.
still here, you have 2 months.
Yeah, you're in your second one. You're acting.
Acting mayor. That's okay. So you can sue from there.
Okay.
So make sure you just, the next item on the agenda is the delegation. That's it. Councillor Brown, what would you do?
Okay. The next item on the agenda is a delegation of concerned residents of Grand Forks that are going to present a water meter manifesto. So that would be Bev Tripp, Karen Bond. All right, like to step up?
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Hamett and the rest of the councillors. May I beg your indulgence for us to just remain seated here? Ms. Bond has the dog, and it makes her a little bit difficult to get over to the chairs, and the light's a little better here for me as they're off there. Would that be okay? Just to protect me here? Thank you. My husband is going to use the clicker for the presentation. And thank you for receiving us today. This delegation request to provide input into the comprehensive water metering program. I've been chosen to share this brief summary today of the water meter manifesto on behalf of its many contributors who have been looking forward today really to share these ideas with you. As a community, we really believe we've suffered enough from the divisiveness that this issue has caused. And we're here today hopeful of a much more collaborative and respectful spirit as we move forward. Just to give a bit of background, last spring, many hundreds of Grand Forks residents signed a petition expressing their concerns about the comprehensive water metering plan. Opponents felt, among other things, that no scientifically accurate and sound evidence was provided for why the expensive water meters were being installed and forced on the Grand Forks residents. Courtesy of a very large and productive aquifer, we have a great supply of water here in Grand Forks.
And as you can see, the aquifer basically outlines the city footprint. The east or the right side has a lower thickness, even less than 20 meters. The west or the left side can go up to 100 meters or more in depth. And of course, the potential yield is contingent on that too. The more depth there is, the more yield you'll have, up to 1,000 gallons per minute US in the western regions.
Just as an aside, it was so neat to be here today when the young people from the school were presenting their water meter findings. And one of the things that we found out when I was reading some of these aquifer reports was that we have the water is very close to the surface here, and there isn't a lot of the soil that the water goes through. One of the things that I remembered was that Colleen Ross had mentioned how important it was for people not to be using pesticides and other things on their gardens, and for the city to not be using those things. I thought, yeah, that really would help us in terms of our aquifer and keeping it pristine.
Can I excuse me just one moment? I need to interrupt for just one moment. It was just discovered that Councillor Krog is the actual acting mayor at this point, so we just need to make that clear.
Okay, so. Please continue.
We can continue, thank you. Okay. Now, urban systems, there's been so many water studies around this area, and they're all so interesting and fascinating. Urban Systems quoted that in Grand Forks, water supply is very good as the source aquifer is highly productive, and we can certainly see that. That was there in their 2011 water demand management report. And then Dobson Engineering, another firm that has done studies here, said water conservation would appear to be a difficult sell to the residents of Grand Forks, considering they have an abundant supply of high quality water even during significant drought periods. These are puzzling issues that many of the residents have struggled with. And so we've also seen that since 2005, our water usage has actually steadily decreased. And that's another thing that people have, these are issues that we just don't feel that have maybe been adequately addressed. However, the city has started the water meter plan, and in the decision to do that, it left some of these concerns sitting there. So this situation has led to the creation of the Water Meter Manifesto, and I'm going to give a very brief summary. We're hoping to get this presentation done within the 10-minute time that we've been allotted. That's the manifesto. It's 268 pages or 64 pages. There's a ton of information in here that's been provided by a lot of residents who have, input this information. One of the main things in the manifesto, if anyone had taken any time to cursorily look through it, was the radio frequency radiation, RF radiation. If unaddressed, the issue of RF radiation will become the asbestos, the DDT, or the secondhand smoke of our generation. Enough people are concerned about these well-documented negative health effects that they really don't wish to have it in their homes, on their homes, or anywhere near their homes. And we believe that it's important to respect that position. The second issue in the manifesto, and I'm just highlighting a few, was the BC Plumbing Code non-compliance. We just wonder how the city could force homeowners to have a meter installed that's in contravention of the BC Plumbing Code. And does that render the home then as having a material latent defect? And what would be the problems with that when it would come to selling a home? There's the issue of insurance liability. Who now holds the insurance liability on the water meters? Are they covered under the city's current insurance policy when residents have a faulty or leaking water meter, as one Grand Forks resident has had apparently for the last 5 or 6 weeks? Who's going to pick up the tab on that, the repairing and all the resultant damages to his property? We also know that insurance companies will neither cover any costs related to negative RF health impacts, and those types of lawsuits are now currently coming before the courts all over the world, in the US and other places. The challenges with the current water metering program we want to look into now. First of all, we understand that the amount of money spent so far on the project is in the range of around $750,000. And the rest of the project could end up costing significantly more than the $1.3 million that was allocated for that. One resident who put a letter in the manifesto has put it this way: please don't compound the problem by throwing away good money after bad. You'll likely need to plan on spending up to $1 million more on the remaining water meter installs. I don't know that number for sure, but not to mention the expensive management and maintenance of the system or the potential exposure to lawsuits. Tying up the city workers' time in supporting and implementing this project has not been budgeted for and must be approved by the taxpayers. This does nothing for our infrastructure. For that close to $1 million, we could make substantial infrastructure improvements and implement a thorough water restriction bylaw enforcement plan that would allow our system to last us up at least until 2024. Now, as we understand it, the city's asset management plan would encompass full cost recovery for the project. Will all of this cost be passed back to the residents through higher taxation? Then there's the freedom of information requests that are currently before the city from the Ombudsman and others. There's the RF radiation guidelines for safe distances from RF emitting devices. Were these adhered to when the water meters were installed? That's a very important question to have answered. There's also the petition now that is out there. It has almost 1,000 signatures, and that one is seeking the Attorney General's involvement in the city's administrative and financial dealings. There's the city's motion to have Councillor Butler removed from office, together with the legal opinion against the participation of Mayor Conrad, who had to leave, and Councillor Butler, who has chosen to stay in any water-related issues. Is this going to lead to a reverse bias in any upcoming water meter decisions? We don't want to see you folks having to be put into those kinds of positions. We want to look at alternative options for moving forward. Grand Forks residents are asking that the City Council consider potentially valid solutions for moving forward with a more cost-saving and viable water management plan. We all believe that it's good to conserve water. We've got a beautiful aquifer that we want to be responsible for and take care of. We're not water wasters, nor are we people who have hydroponic grow-ops in our homes. You know, this rationale that we are going to present here comes from sources that have concluded that water meters are not a very effective way of reducing water demand, especially over time. Whereas district or sectional metering is, and at an absolute fraction of the cost. Now, there's a report in here from Veritech Engineering. They did it for Revelstoke, and I think this was presented at the last City Council, and I believe that it was stated that this wasn't applicable to our city, but I believe that there are elements in that report that are very applicable. One of the things that they said is that detection of water leakage and fixing those leaks could result in a potential 30% reduction in water loss, 30% reduction, just on that one thing. Squamish is pursuing this. Many other municipalities are pursuing this as an alternative to expensive water meters being put in. This report from Veritech stated that the district metering with leak detection is the most pragmatic, cost-effective solution available, and therefore is the clear preferred option at this time for demand savings. The point is, leaking pipes are going to have to be fixed anyway, and doing so will also greatly diminish the stress put on the infrastructure right now. I also loved that little piece that that young man had about the wastewater. Like, what a great way for us to think outside the box and do something that's creative to reduce the amount of stress on the pipes. That's something that we could all be involved in and possibly greatly reduce the stress on the pipes of this city. You know, we absolutely believe that people should be responsible for the amount of water that they use. And we're not coming to you and saying, you know, we should be able to have the 10-minute showers with the, you know, non-low flow water heads. We don't do that. So the price tag here was an estimated $44,000 for district metering leakage detection in Revelstoke. $44,000 compared to maybe close to $1 million to complete the project. Reducing water loss will achieve a whole bunch of things. They're up there for you to see. They'll decrease water demand, increase available fire flow, divert less water from the aquifer, increase security of our water supply, reduce operating costs, reduce pollution, underpin the community's prosperity, and allow for even population growth. Now, other options that we'd like the city to consider, if they have not already, utilize the Valley Heights Reservoir for fire flow protection. What is the city status on the proposed new well? And how does this affect our water residuals and flow rates for peak fire flow and maximum daily demand? Why don't we enforce existing water meter restrictions? You know, in 2000, Urban System Engineering stated that an effective sprinkling meter restriction program can result in a potential decrease in irrigation demand in the order of 50%. Hire a water ambassador. Provide incentives such as rain barrels, timers, rebates for installation of all the things that young people spoke about in their water conservation presentation. And educate people.
Can we wrap this up, Tim?
I don't know that we've gone our 10 minutes.
Yeah.
We had a bit of a break here with,
Yes. 2 slides left.
we have 2 slides left, if it's okay for us to put these through. The residents of Grand Forks believe that now's the right time for the city to evaluate how the water metering program has been performing. How much water are the metered residents actually using? How many leaks have been detected from the meters that have already been installed? How well are the water bylaws being enforced from the data that's been collected from the installed meters? Does the city know if the industrial commercial sector our meters are giving accurate recordings of what they are emitting or what they are using? We would like there to be a cooling off period in the upcoming days because there's a lot of information that will be coming forward. We'd like to see some time to step back and evaluate the best way to plan for the future of Grand Forks water needs. With less emotion and more information, wise decisions can be made as to how to move forward with the water metering plan. I'd just like to say in closing, I've got one paragraph. We recognize that this is a very complex issue and that you're seeking to do your very best for the citizens of Grand Forks. Now, we know that in a couple of items down on this agenda, you're going to be asked to be making a decision about moving forward with the water metering plan. We're asking you to please consider how you're going to look at this information that's been presented. Please consider what you've just heard and vote according to your head, your heart, and your conscience, because the best decisions are made using all of those. We want to thank you from the residents of Grand Forks.
Thank you.
Now can we clap?
No clapping.
No clap.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept that information.
Secondary for that, Councillor Thompson.
Discussion?
Discussion and questions, actually. Questions of the presenter as well. Okay.
Turn your mic off.
No.
Everyone push control.
Thanks, Mrs. Tripp, for your presentation. Actually, a lot of things that you mentioned in your presentation also come from the Curdell-Lydell report to Council. As you said, we've received a lot of different reports over the years, and Kerwood-Lydell also recommended that we take a 3-year installation period for the meters, that there's no rush to push it through, which is something our CAO has also said to Council before. There is no rush to push this project through. The Curdell-Lydell report also suggested to test the industrial meters because over time they do lose their efficiency, and the standards are that they be tested every certain amount of years to make sure that they are still accurate. And also Curdell-Lydell reported that we ought to do a water audit to find our leaks first, that anything over 15% in water loss was something that needed to be addressed first before proceeding with anything else. And to this point, I don't think we have done that water audit, and I think that maybe we should just take the advice of the experts that the city has hired and do what these reports have said we should do.
Just a comment to that, the Veritech report.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I have Miss Bond. Miss Bond, next in line.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you. My name is Karen Bond. I would like to ask City Council if they could explain to us the reason that there has been a water meter leaking in Grand Forks since April 14th. That's 2 months today. It's still leaking according to the gentleman I spoke to, and his basement is damaged. He doesn't want to try and fix it. He's afraid that he will be accused of interfering with liability, and I would like to raise this as a furtherance of our request that we have a 1-year cooling off period.
Thank you. Ms. Tripp.
Yeah, just in response to Councillor Butler's comment, the Veritech report did say, I believe, that most of the cities in the Boundary Kootenay area had leaks in the area of from between 30 and 70% leaks in their pipes.
That's huge.
Yes. Okay, Donna Semenoff. I read the reports about a year ago and I reviewed them again last night. There's something very interesting that I'm really grateful that Councillor Butler went to that report. It's the 2010 report, Kerwood-Lydell, and it's the conservation plan. So they were thinking about the approach that we could take to conservation. And they mentioned water meters, but they also mentioned other things. Now, what they said to do, at the end of the report, they said you do a water audit, and they said certain things to do that they thought were important that would help with that audit. One was testing the meters, and because the industry meters, when they're not accurate, they actually don't measure all the water going in. It also said, from talking to staff, that not necessarily all connections to industry were being metered at that time. Okay, and they said that's important because, you know, so they can measure how much industry is really using. So 2 things there. The third thing that's very interesting is they recommended voluntary metering of residences. And they said you use that data for figuring out your leaks. so they didn't say everyone, but to figure out approximately how many leaks might be within homes as well. You could use that data for examining other things. And it said, have this audit. Then, less than a year later, Urban Systems did a report, and they did have a water audit, but there was nothing in there about residential metering, any data in there. There was nothing in there about testing meters. Actually, when I spoke with Mr. Allen, apparently they've never been tested. But also, and I was shocked and confused, it was saying that there's unknown amount of leaks, and they can only make this audit with the information they have, and there could be large unaccounted for water. So I was like, how could that be? Why would our city have had an audit and they didn't do what that other report said? Now, Carewood Lydell, they asked for those things. They also have a flow chart. If you look near the end of that report, they recommend that you do those things, you have your audit, and then you have a percentage estimate with the data. And if your leaks are more than a certain percentage, they actually recommend you do the leak detection and repair. And then you evaluate water metering, and they don't even say you have to do water metering. They say, or you could do other things. There's something important.
Robert, we have other speakers.
Okay, there's really important things for making this decision. You might notice that the water use went down dramatically, over 1 million cubic meters per year. Okay, so anyways, this report, the actions in there were not followed, and I highly recommend you look at that closer, because it gives us a guide about conservation plan, which we might choose to do some of those things now.
Okay, the gentleman with the hat.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Croc. Barry Jarvis. Following up on a couple of comments here, and a brief question. In the 2014 Grand Forks Water Supply Final Report prepared by Urban Systems, who appear to be a favored vendor with the city, from 2008 to 2012, our maximum daily demand dropped over 10%. I'd like to know if that trend has continued, and I don't see Dave here. Does anybody know whether that trend has... Oh, Dave, do you know offhand if that trend has continued?
Okay, we don't have the numbers in front, so you can't appropriate.
Okay, that's fine.
Hang on, just settle down.
Okay, so we don't know whether that trend has continued.
Let the gentleman finish what he's doing.
So the answer is we don't know whether that trend has continued, is that correct?
No, the answer is we don't have that report in front of our supervisor of public works, so he won't be able to accurately answer it without that information.
Okay, fair enough. The second question is another brief one, following up again on a couple of items. When we're all said and done, at the current rate of installs, we're going to be a couple of $100,000 short on the install of water meters, at least. That's based on numbers that are currently on the city's website, and just some very basic calculations. I'd like to know if we are that short, how that's going to be, that shortfall will be funded.
Through me, if city staff would like to answer that.
If there was a shortfall, there would be a request for decision brought forward to council to consider an amendment in the financial plan, and the funding sources would be identified if that was a situation.
Okay, but
so our typical process is, if council's in a position where they have a contract that is out, city staff will not go out and spend the money. What will happen is city staff will ask council to amend the financial plan, because the financial plan is approved with tax rates by May 15th of each year according to the charter.
Right.
So in order for there to be additional spending, it would have to come forward to council. Council may consider other options if that was to be the case. So, but that we haven't identified that that's the case. So,
okay.
But that's our process that we're required to do.
Okay, but that's just rough numbers, and that looks like it was going to be.
Thank you. I'm looking for speakers that haven't had a chance to speak as of yet.
My name's Brent Hummel, and I'm just concerned over the whole process more than everything. A couple of friends told me there's big fights and issues over water meters. I live out in the regional, out the North Fork. One of my concerns is, you know, the mayor's got to get out of here. Julia's under, you know, conflict of interest, and I'm just wondering how far council is willing to go to divide a city. Obviously, there's hundreds of people that are opposed to water meters. I have a ton of water on my property. I could pump it out. I don't waste water, but I could pump it out forever and supply all of Grand Forks, no problem. And I'm wondering, why is there such a rush? Why are people being cut short because we don't want to hear their full thing when we could talk about trails or whatever? We want to cut people off and spend money on trails. There's obviously a concern. People were voted out of office on the very issue of the water meter thing. And I'm just wondering, how far is council willing to go to drive this thing through? I mean, the people that talk to me, they own their own homes, they're taxpayers, they're not freaks, you know what I mean? They're marginalized and demonized and called like some small ET group from some other planet. We live in a good place here, and I'm just wondering why you guys want to drive and hammer this issue through. I mean, they presented good facts to you, and it's like you guys are just really short with them. And I'm like concerned that you guys aren't being fair. And also, Karen had a question. There's a guy's house that's been leaking for 2 months. He's terrified to touch it. And I don't know council policies, but you guys didn't answer her question. She said, when will you guys fix it, or how will that be done? And I'm wondering, is that not etiquette to answer someone's question? I don't know, but I mean, she asked a question. Could it be answered? Thank you.
Okay. In order to answer that, 1 second, I just wanted to make sure that we're talking about the same person. Is this the individual that was out of the country?
No.
For, hang on, wait till I finish. The individual that was out of the country and his neighbor heard his leak, and the person sent in an email threatening to, Minnie got back to town to write letters to the editor and to go to lawyers. Is that the same individual? And then it was found out that it wasn't the water meter, it was his water tank, and he thanked the city for helping him? Is that the same?
I don't heard I heard.
Ms. Bond?
To answer your question, no, it's not the same situation. That was a hot water heater. The water meter did not detect the leak in that case. The leak to which I was referring, that's been going on since the middle of April, is a different individual whose basement and drywall is being damaged, and that's the one that he told me as of Friday has still not been fixed, even though the city council has received a letter as of the end of April, early May, saying please fix the leaking water meter.
Yes, thank you.
I'm not sure the exact location, but we've had one customer that's pointed out something to us that is not a situation that I believe our manager of operations has addressed this. We've had one situation. It would be helpful for us to understand the location of the person's home, but we've had one situation where one customer has had some questions to the city about this. We've sent in a plumber to have a look at this, and we've inspected it. I believe Mr. Reed has a chronology of that. Dave, would you like to expand a little bit on that without using the person's name, because we don't want to assume that it's one individual?
Okay.
Yeah, Mr. Reed.
Thank you. So we did get a request to come and inspect the meter that was believed to be leaking. Numerous appointments were tried to keep the resident with their timeline and not interfere with their lives. Probably 5 different attempts were made from April till May. We finally did locate a time where it worked for both the plumber that was to come in and the homeowner. He requested that the city not be involved with that. We sent the plumber. The plumber looked at the meter, determined it wasn't the meter, it was a service supply to the house that was leaking, causing condensation and the appearance that the meter may be leaking, but it was condensation from this leak prior to the meter. So a letter has been written in response. I was just waiting for the plumber's notes to attach that to the response.
Councillor Butler.
Thank you, Mr. Krug. Council received a letter dated May the 15th from Lawrence Antefe, resident of Grand Forks. It states, whereas it has been a week from Friday, May 8th, 2015, when Mr. Len Federico from the City Works Department was at the house at 7610 22nd Street to take pictures and tell me that he would have the plumber come over and fix it up. And whereas I have not had a phone call message on the answering machine or a note on the front door of the house from the city or the plumber informing me the plumber was coming over to the house to fix the water leak from the pipes, fittings, and water meter, and whereas I have not had any contact from the city employees or the plumber to arrange an appointment to do the necessary work in the past week, and whereas I have requested that the city arrange for a plumber to come over to the house to repair. Anyways, he goes on. We also just received another letter from Mr. Antefe, I think it was June the 5th. He dropped it off at City Hall stating that it's still leaking, he still has a problem with it, his basement is damaged, and he's unsure as to how to follow through with his insurance. And he has many questions, and he's still waiting for the city to get back and respond to him on this issue. So it has become quite a problem for Mr. Antefe, and he's asked me to bring it forward at this meeting and to ask that the city get back to him again on this so that he can get his basement fixed.
Councillor Ross. Councillor Hamett.
I just wanted to ask about that letter.
Oh.
Yeah, thank you. Just to address this concern from the gentleman here who lives up in North Fork. It's, this has been a real burr in our saddle since we mounted this horse called City Council. And from the moment that we decided that we were going to run for council, many of us have been plagued with abusive phone calls, notes left inside my vehicle that was locked, and now somebody got into my vehicle and left a note on my vehicle. I've had a note left outside my property, on my property. I've been called everything from an a-hole to a jerk and an idiot for the first time in my entire life. So I'm sort of have compassion fatigue. It's not for lack of understanding. I lived in a drought country for almost 20 years where I farmed, and I had an aquifer that we were told was never ending. So people pumped the crap out of it. If they tested their well at 20,000 gallons an hour, those people pumped at 20,000 gallons an hour. What we had is salination, and everybody's well went dry. I think we need to behave in a manner that we assume that climate chaos is a reality, whether you're a climate change denier or not, and I've met a few in this town that they are climate change deniers. Let's behave as if climate change is a reality. Whether we have an amazing aquifer that has 1 million gallons an hour, let's behave as though we do not. I would not have rolled this out the way it was rolled out. I'm traumatized by the whole thing. I'm just trying to, we're trying to stand back, look at the history, the chronological history of how this came down. Since the 70s, globally, including somebody I know very well named Maud Barlow, has known that water was a precious resource that was being traded off and being wasted. But people continue to drive their cars because evidently fuel is something that we're never going to run out of either, even though we talked about peak oil, 20 years ago. We're past the point of peak water, but people we're still you know, I'm still looking. I've been in this community for only a couple of years, and I've been appalled at the way that people use water in this community. Whether water use has just gone down or not, that's a great stat, yahoo, but we're still using too much water. I don't believe that, I know that water meters don't save water, but water meters may make us more conscientious about how much water we use. If RF is the issue, get RF off the table. Just, let's not talk about RF, let's not do any more RF meters, let's stop the RF thing. Let's do some analog only. RF, I agree. If you don't want RF, don't do RF. There's other options. So let's just, you know, let's stand back, take a breath. I don't want division in this community. I didn't move here for division. I moved here for peace. And I don't have peace. And, you know, like, let's move forward. I didn't want this to happen in council. I want it to work collegially. I have a lot of good ideas about how we can conserve water and how we can make this silk purse out of this sow's ear that we have in this water meter issue. But I have genuinely compassion fatigue over the way I've been treated, not only by people in this room, but people who don't have the courage to be in this room right now. So if I'm a little impatient, I'm not apologizing for it, but I will move forward, and I have great ideas of how we can move forward collegially and somehow just finish this project somehow so that we don't have to talk about it anymore. I'd like to see rainwater tanks on every house. Yes. And I'd like to see clotheslines in every backyard.
Yeah, there we go. Councillor Hamett. You had a question about the...
I did.
Yeah. Settle down.
But one of the things that I just wanted to comment on too is that I agree with Councillor Ross that we walked into this after the election. At the election time, when we took our office, this project was 70% complete and over $700,000 has been spent on it. I'm not sure what you think we can do with that. That money has been spent, and to try and reverse that now, what are we going to do? Pull it out of people's homes? Then we're going to be accused of wasting that kind of money. It's going to cost us a lot less to move forward. The budget was $1.3 million. And if we can look at other options to continue to complete this project, but to actually stop it and just ignore the money that we've spent at this point, I don't think would be responsible of us. So we're frustrated, and we just want to see an end and a result to this whole situation.
Thank you. I have the lady by the window.
Oh, I was just going to say, oh sorry, I'm Roma Hamilton. I just wanted to say that you were saying some things that you were getting agreement on here. And in the last meeting, you mentioned offhand about being a Roundup-free city. And when we were talking about the aquifer, my understanding is there's not a great depth of soil, therefore there's not a great amount of filtration. So it's good for us to voluntarily not use Roundup, etc. in the city. So you said, Colleen, just off the cuff, I'd like to see a Roundup-free city. Well, there's a lot of amens here saying, could you, as the city council, start trying to cut back on the insecticides or whatever you do use in the city. For myself, our weed control is blue dish soap, vinegar and Epsom salts. I hate to think what's in the blue dish soap. But anyway, it is killing off my growth in my pathway, and it's not using Roundup. So there are ways that you could step forward to protect the quality of our aquifer and be leaders, and there wouldn't be arguments. We'd all agree with you, and it doesn't need a bylaw. It needs examples.
Thank you. Are there any more first-time speakers?
I'm Gloria Cook, and I would like to thank Councillor Ross for expressing her thoughts on this matter. These thoughts that she expressed are echoed and felt by us as well, hugely. Things have happened with people we know, like Councillor Ross talks about. So this is not one-sided. And we would like a pause and a re-look at this situation. We do not have to continue in this way. The money spent is the money spent. That was not our doing, our request or anything, but it is done. We have to move on, let that go, and move on with better ways to do this, not continue with this ludicrous program. There are better, cheaper ways to do this. And that's just broadly put. I don't have time, nor do you, to go into all of them. Please do this. Thank you.
We are going to have to wrap this up because I'm thinking Mr. Mayor might have gone for a nap now. I will, I have Councillor Butler is going to be the last speaker. I just want to finish answering Ms. Bond's question about the leaky meter and the letter and all that stuff for Councillor Butler as well. I'm not sure if everybody heard what the CAO said, that it's a supply line problem. The meter is not leaking. If you look at it, it appears to be anodization, if that is the correct pronunciation, which is when you have two metals together, they wear. So that appears to be what's happening. It is not a meter leak. Councillor Butler will have the final speak.
He never had a turn.
I know. Never mind. Okay, I'll let Councillor Butler speak, and then I will let Mr. Hamilton have a short last sentence.
So I guess what the resident was wanting to know then is, can he hire a plumber to come in and deal with this so that his basement isn't continually being flooded? He doesn't want to be responsible for breaking the bylaw and having a $200 fine for touching his meter. He'd like to hire somebody to come in and have this dealt with. So if he could have confirmation on that, he could move forward. And then my other comment would be...
Mr. Mayor, if I could just add, the city has already hired an independent plumber to go over and take a look at this. So David, we already had the plumber in there. He's the one that got the pictures of the situation and explained it to the customer. I'll just leave it at that. The plumber has already addressed the situation with the customer. And we've handled it professionally. We've responded. We've done all those reports in there. I have the chronology from our staff, Mr. Mayor, and the chronology from our staff does demonstrate a high level of professionalism from our team in responding and attempting to respond time after time and trying to line up a contractor and then not having it work out. But we've had, I believe that Mr. Reed has done a very good job of trying to work with the customer.
So now it's in the customer's hands then to move forward and deal with this situation on his own.
Mr. Mayor, we were tempted to try to reach out to him again to further clarify again what he feels as though could be and why it would be a city issue. But our professional opinion coming from outside is that it is not a situation that's been created by the water meter.
My other comment was to moving forward with the project. I'm actually quite interested to find out the stats that have come in from the meters that have been put in so far. I'd really like to see that information come before council to say, what is the average water usage that these meters are recording? How many leaks have been detected? This leak from the letter that we just received and the other leak from the man that was out of town. Are there people monitoring the information from the meters so that they're as useful as they're supposed to be? Because they're supposed to be detecting leaks for us. So I'd like to know how many leaks have been detected with these meters, and to see if we're enforcing our sprinkling regulations using the meters, because on the website for the meters it says that they are able to be used to enforce sprinkling regulations. So I'd like to see what we're doing with the meters we have so far, how effective they're being for us, and evaluate that information and then make a decision to move forward to see, is it worthwhile putting the rest of the meters in, or district metering? Is that an option that maybe we can try first, like Curdell Lydell suggested, that we find our leaks and fix them first? There's no rush to get the rest of these meters in. They're not going away. We can take our time. Let's go through some of these other processes first. Spend a little bit of money, give some residents some timers for their sprinkling system this summer. There are people out there watering outside of their sprinkling times. I see that. And you know, if we just spent $60 here instead of spending who knows how much on a meter, we can reduce their water usage quite a bit right away this summer. We don't have to wait. Let's distribute some of these and get people using them. Let's educate people. Yes. Maud Barlow's book. She's got lots of information out.
Thank you. Last word, preferably short. Councillor Hamilton.
Thank you very much, Mayor Crowe, correct? Mayor Crowe.
Yeah.
Okay, first of all, I know Beverly is wanting to apologize on behalf of those dinglings who wrote nasty words and what have you. None of us here have been doing that. We've been speaking reasonably, and I think that was at one point. There's another point, and there's a scripture that says the letter of the law kills, but the spirit gives life. And there's a principle here of mockery which comes from either side. And we want to get rid of that. We want to get rid of this pushing aside and not listening to what somebody's saying. This gentleman asked the question and he didn't have the information. This lady had the information and everybody could see that. I'm just going to read it here. The amount of water pumped out of Grand Forks on a maximum day, 2005 was 21,000, nearly 22,000, what's that, m squared? Cubic meters, right. So 21, nearly 22, 21,986. And it went down to 19 and blah, blah, blah. And this last year was at 13,000 something. So the average here was about, gradually going down until now to about, looks like the average was about 14 or 15. But gradually, and now it's at its low. Yes, last year was a little lower. 2013 was 12,000. So from 22 down to 12, and this year, last year was 2014 was 13,721. Well, I think first of all, the spirit, I'm saying, listen to what the people are saying. Just, relax things a little about the law. You've got to do this, and listen and work with us. And we want to work with you. We're not against you. So what I'm bothered about is my health and the health of the others. I know the RF is deadly. And I would like to see the water conservation. I have, what's the word, in my garden I have, what do you call them? The rain barrels and so on. I do all the preservation I can. And I think people are beginning to do that. So work with us and we'll work with you. And I'll tell anybody that's leaving notes and cards to smarten up.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Final word. This is why I'm acting. Councillor Thompson, and that's it.
I wasn't going to comment on that, Mr. Mayor. I was going to suggest perhaps that we recess this period of the whole meeting until perhaps 1 o'clock. I do know that time's of the essence and we have some other pressing issues that we have to deal with.
Recess the meeting, we have to work through the meeting, we have to put things aside. We have to put them aside, but then we have to adjourn the meeting and then go into the next one. So just for clarification purposes. So if somebody, if you want to ask somebody to call the question.
Could you speak up, please? Speak up, we can't hear you.
Yes, question, we had a motion, or did we have a motion to accept it?
Motion to accept
Okay.
the information, seconded.
All in favor? Opposed? Carried. I thought you didn't want to be. Okay, let's see if we can find.
Gently.
Yes. Yes. Sorry, that's Councillor Hamett and Councillor Thompson.
Mayor has returned.
Welcome back.
All right.
Our next items on the agenda are the presentations from staff. From our Manager of Development Engineering, we have an application for a Development Variance Permit to request an interior setback variance from 3 meters, which is 10 feet, to 0.9144 meters, which is 3 feet, in order to construct a carport. The recommendation is council receives the report, recommends the council select one of the presented options at the July 20th regular meeting. So, presenting a presentation.
Yes, so we are in receipt of a development variance permit to construct a carport. We're requesting that 10-foot setback to a 3-foot setback, and that's to accommodate the vehicle that they own. And so basically what our plan is to send out notices to the surrounding property owners and afford them the opportunity to come speak at the July 20th Committee of the Whole meeting.
May I have a motion to receive the report?
I would make that motion and
Councillor
I would
Thompson.
add that we authorize staff to proceed with option 1.
We will be discussing the options at the July 20th meeting. We're just receiving it for now.
So that, okay.
Do I have a second on that motion, please? Councillor Ross. I do not assume there'll be any discussion on this. Councillor Butler.
Just wanted to check, and I'm sure the fire chief is okay with that, with the setback. He can still have access to the property. Yeah, and pending no neighbors having a problem with it, it shouldn't be an issue.
Councillor, we will be discussing this at the July 20th meeting. It is not open for discussion, we're just receiving the report.
I thought we were accepting and directing staff to proceed with statutory requirements necessary and refer the application to the July 20th. So that's the option 1 is the recommended option that I'm...
No, it's recommending that council selects one of the options presented at the July 20th regular meeting.
Option 1.
We're just receiving.
Committee of the Whole can choose to accept the request and direct staff to proceed with the statutory requirements necessary for development variance permit application and refer the application to the July 20th, 2015 regular meeting of council for decision. So we need to proceed with the statutory requirements and then be advised at the July 20th meeting what has transpired in that time so that we can make an informed decision.
I second Councillor Thompson's motion.
Councillor Butler.
I think I understand. There's just a discrepancy in the wording where it says it recommends to council to select. I think maybe you're understanding that to mean that recommending to council as a whole, where this is the committee of the whole. But I do believe we can make that decision now and just move forward with the advertising, if that's okay with you, Mr. Moore.
Yeah. So decided, sure. So all in favor of that motion? So carried.
We can bring that back tonight for a regular meeting coming up.
We've already voted on it. July the 20th.
July 20th.
No, but to proceed.
We don't need to.
Do we just need to
Okay.
go to the session? Okay.
Yeah,
Done it.
that's the statute.
Our second presentation is the Manager of Development and Engineering again for an application for a development variance permit to request an increase in accessory building height and an increase in overall floor area of all accessory buildings in order to construct a garage. Again, the recommendation is to receive the report and recommend to council to select one of the presented options at the July 20th regular meeting. Ms. Burke.
Yes, so Mr. Mayor, we've received a development variance permit application for the applicant to construct a 984 square foot single car garage. They're requesting a variance from 16 feet to 19.1 feet, as well as an increase in the floor area from 50% to 129% of the principal structure. Again, like the previous development variance permit, we will be sending notices to the surrounding property owners and affording them the opportunity to come to the July 20th Committee of the Whole meeting.
So may I have a motion to receive that report and the recommendation?
I will make that.
Councillor Thompson, do I have a second? Councillor Brock. Unless there's any issues. Councillor Hamett.
1,950 square feet for a single car garage seems awfully large. Do we know what it's going to be used for? Because that's bigger than most houses. Is it going to be
I think it's a
commercial?
motor
Yeah.
home.
Motorhome.
There's a picture of it at the bottom.
It's an RV garage.
Oh, 980 square feet, okay. And it's still.
Does that answer satisfy?
Yeah.
Any other further discussions?
So
Councillor Butler.
is the motion just to receive, or is it to proceed with choosing an option like we did on the last one?
Same as the last
Yeah,
one,
yeah, so we're moving forward to advertise to the neighbors.
Yeah, it should be, yeah.
So all in favor? So carried. Next one is from Corporate Services. It's the Selkirk College Partnership for Mural Project. It's a recommendation to council to receive the request regarding the mural project to be undertaken in partnership with Selkirk College and refers it to the June 15, 2015 regular meeting of council for decision and or direction to staff. May I have that motion, please? Councillor Crog, do I have a second on that? Councillor Hamett? Is there any discussion or debate? Councillor Ross?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I have heard from several members in the arts community and who are a little concerned about it simply because they were hoping to participate as artists in the community in doing murals on the lift station in order to promote the artists that are in the community and endeavoring to promote their own art as a legitimate form of making a living. And they feel a little bit betrayed by the city in now that the city is partnering with Selkirk College to have this mural done on the lift station. So I'm just putting it out there that there are artists in the community that knowing about this project going forward. And I think it's great. Art and youth, I fully support it. I think art is an important part of how we express ourselves as human beings. They're an important part of social movements. But there was a time when artists in the city were working with the council, previous council, to do this project. And now the city is working with Selkirk College and with students, and the artists in the city are feeling disrespected.
All due respect, Councillor Ross, we're just receiving your request. We're going to be
And I'm
discussing
speaking
it.
to it. I'm speaking to it, so we have the information.
Councillor Hamett.
Just a question. I read something about the proposal by the artists on the lift station, but there was a cost attached that was substantial, quite substantial. Do you remember? Do you have that information?
Sure. Deputy Corporate Officer. Swinton.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. Yes, they requested that council provide them with a certain amount of financial support to proceed with the project, and that would cover the cost of a project manager, somebody who could oversee the whole project and make sure that it was in keeping with council's wishes. And that was one of the sort of challenges for council. This request is not necessarily asking for funding for the project. It would move forward whether or not council so chose to fund the project or not. This is a camp for kids, and whether or not they are able to use the lift station, the project will move forward. They have a wall at the regional district office, and they have a wall on the Selkirk College building that they can also use. The lift station is an ideal situation, and the community and council have been talking about doing something with the lift station walls for a couple of years, and this was an opportunity that was brought forward.
Councillor Crog.
Speaking actually in favor of this, it's different than the other proposals, I believe, for a couple of reasons. It involves youth. I don't think there's any compensation back to the artists that would produce these pieces. They are on canvas, which I really like, because then you use it as a gallery, and then the canvases can come down in the fall or when the weather starts to turn. And setting aside or setting a size for these canvases would benefit the other artists that would like to participate. So we could look at individuals creating their own canvases and then figure out how to change, just like a gallery would, how to switch out paintings. I believe that this also, and I don't know if it really got spoke to, because I don't see too much reference to it. I believe that this instructor is also looking at graffiti art, right? So not just art as well. So they're looking at, I believe, the whole media. And I think it would be a fabulous asset. My only concern, again, even though the request for funding is way lower than the last one, is I would like to actually see some financials as that money request specifically for the canvas, like it says, canvas and brushes, or is it being used for other things in that thing? So I support it. To our Deputy Corporal.
The funding request is specifically for canvases and brushes. Okay, so it wouldn't be, it's not for payment of the instructor or to support the running of the day camp.
Councillor Thompson.
Councillor Krog indicated, which and stated that they're not a permanent, going to be permanent. They can be removed and changed out, and I think that's very important. The artisans that made their approach last year, I believe, wanted to make it a permanent, more permanent on the lift station. So there is a difference there.
Again, to our Deputy Corporate Officer.
There are 8 walls altogether down on the lift stations that could be utilized by various artist groups. For this particular project, they're requesting the use of 2 walls. So there's still lots of walls left.
So, all in favor, do I have a motion to receive the request? Councillor Thompson and Councillor Butler. All in favor? So carried. Our next item on the agenda is the Deputy Corporate Officer's Communications, Draft Communication Policy and Procedures. And the recommendation is that Council receive the Draft Communications Policy and Procedures and determines to move forward with public consultation and a council workshop as the next step in its development. May I have a motion on that, Councillor Thompson? Do I have a second? Councillor Hamett? Just have a discussion. I don't see any of this. All in favor of that motion? So carried. Our next item on the agenda is from our Manager of Operations. It's in regards to the Universal Water Meter Program. And the recommendation is that Council recommends choosing one of the options and directs it to staff to proceed accordingly. On that note,
Before you go, can I refer this to the July 20th meeting? Or does he have to?
I'll second that.
We haven't seconded it.
we don't have one motion to table.
Just the mayor is actually just declaring his conflict, or he's making a declaration here. At that point, once the mayor has recused himself, if that's what he's doing, then it'll go to the deputy mayor or the acting mayor, and you guys can have that conversation.
Oh, okay. So does he have to read the whole thing out again?
Yes. So once again, I, Mayor Frank Conrad, wish to declare at this time that I wish to recuse myself and am not entitled to participate in discussions or vote on the next item of business before for this meeting, and that is item 4E on the meeting agenda by reason of advisement from the corporation lawyers Young Anderson based on their opinion of a perceived indirect pecuniary conflict of interest directed at myself. Also based on their advisement that the remainder of council should encourage me to recuse myself. Furthermore, I wish to invoke my right under Community Charter Section 100 and 104 respectively that I, Mayor Conrad, am not declaring nor admitting to this perceived conflict of interest. For in my opinion as mayor, there is no conflict of interest and never was. Furthermore, for the record, this action obstructs my ability to perform my elected official duty as mayor for all the citizens of Grand Forks, and that I wish to leave this meeting at this time and request that the minutes record my leaving the meeting for the reasons as being stated above.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would put forward a motion that this item be tabled to the July 20th.
Is there a seconder for that motion? Seconded by Councillor Butler. Discussion. Councillor Ross, and we have Mr. Allen.
Well, I'll let Mr. Allen speak first,
So, Mr. Mayor, what I would recommend here is that council does proceed with this today to make the decision. This would allow staff to then go out and get the information from the public on anything else that we may have missed in respect to the consultation and finishing the project if council decides to finish the project. Council already has a resolution on the floor that's approved by council for staff to continue on with the water meter installations. That was done in February, I believe. The council has asked for more information from the public in respect to the bylaw. So you're talking today about the bylaw, and you're going to be asking for public input on amendments to the bylaw. You're not asking about, the project you're talking about here today is going to be about seeking more input from the public. So if there's other things that the public has to offer in respect to the bylaw that we've overlooked, then this is what the intention of this is. And that was what council's intention of the motion was back in, I believe it was April or March, I can't recall the date, but council did ask for us to go create an options report for the bylaw and then bring it back to committee of the whole. And that report would then be recommended to go out to the public for a period of, as per the manager's resolution, for a period of time that will allow us to seek some more input. Then we would bring the bylaw back for amendment as part of this, because there is many challenges in that bylaw right now, because it says by July 15th meters have to be installed and a few other things that we have to consider now based on the delays that have been created. So it would be prudent for us to go and ask the public now for more input and then move it forward. But if we delay it longer, we're going to be in a position where it's going to move into the winter months, and then we'll be later on in 2016 if council decide to do this, because we still will have to mobilize a contractor and do these types of things. So many other factors to consider here.
Councillor Ross.
Okay, so thank you, Mr. Allen has answered some of my questions. I'm just looking at the request for decision that basically we have to, as a committee, recommend council to choose one of the options and direct staff to proceed accordingly. My reason for potentially voting to delay this was based exactly on that, and perhaps Mr. Allen can help me with this because I'm not the smartest chick in the flock. I didn't like any of the options. So like, how can I recommend one of the options? It says choose one of the options. Well, I read it and I thought, well, I nixed all of them, and I have another option. And I want to have an arena for council so that I can introduce my option, and we can, in a formal academic setting, as a council, look at the options and discuss it, and then bring it to the public for their discourse. That's the only reason that I would like to defer this. If there's something simple we can do today just to proceed with this, great. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to end up telling everybody my option.
Okay.
And it might need
Just
editing.
Point of order.
We'll be here in a minute.
Where there's no discussion on a referral, so we need to. Okay, is the referral secondary? Did we have a secondary?
Yes, you did. But a committee of the whole, you don't need a second.
Oh, okay. So the mover has withdrawn the motion to refer or defer.
That doesn't preclude someone else.
It does not preclude. Okay, are we?
Okay, so, I'm sorry. Councillor Hamett, distracted.
I'm looking for the actual options.
Okay, so can you repeat what you just said? I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, Acting Mayor.
Okay, the motion to refer has been withdrawn. So we're looking at the options that have been suggested by staff, which by no means are the only options. We could choose to proceed as planned with bylaw 1973. We could choose to amend the bylaw, section 11, to allow for opting out. We could choose two other alternatives, which is weirdly worded. And then they have alternative A and alternative B. But if there was an alternative C, I can't see what the problem would be. Okay, so.
Is that from city or is that from the urban systems?
That's urban systems.
That's urban systems, that's the one.
Okay.
Right, not from staff, those are from urban systems.
Okay.
The Councillor Ross could also
Okay.
table it.
Yes, I also have Councillor Butler.
Your mic. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I believe the intention of the motion, as it stated at the bottom, was to include it in this report, which is before us. There'll be options on how staff will move forward with collecting the data from the residents. And that's what I'd like to see, just like how Councillor Ross said. She has another option and the residents had other options. And my idea with this motion is that all those options would be collected for council to review, and there'd be some creative ideas in there. This report from Urban Systems, proceed, don't proceed, or opt out, I mean, that's pretty basic. I don't see the need for this report. I'd like to see the creative ideas that Councillor Ross has and the community has.
Right.
Yes, just some clarification on it.
Sure.
Because it's not, this is.
Could I try to clarify from
Yes.
the staff perspective?
Yeah, it's not a report.
So just for clarification, staff went to, as part of the preparation of this report, it was, the options were sought. Urban Systems went and got some information from around the province. Our staff have been inundated with many other tasks to do. So this report was sought and brought forward from an engineering perspective on common things that are seen around the province of British Columbia. So we are not, and searching around the rest of areas and communities that have had challenges with in relation to water meter issues and rates and whatnot. The report before council today is simply a guide into some reality options that exist in other communities. This is not something that we were going to cook up, and we were going to come up with things that weren't consistent with all of the engineering reports that staff had received and council's received. Because when council undertook the asset management plan, when council received the reports that they have, staff works within that realm. Staff works within the realm that the professionals provide us. Almost to the same tune, like I said to the mayor one day, I said, if you were going to need a kidney transplant, you would expect staff to go and talk to your surgeon rather than to get an opinion from somebody else. In this report, we are asking you to go to the public and seek some more input. And I believe that was the purpose of the presentation today. For a period of approximately 10 days, I think the manager is referring to, is to see if there's anything that we've missed or overlooked in this. And if Councillor Ross was to want to provide her opinion at that point, that would be the opportunity for this to be included. A report would then be brought back to Council on July 20th, to the Committee of the Whole meeting where it would be discussed. And then that bylaw would be on the Council's agenda for the evening. But what we'd be talking about, though, is what did we miss that was so drastic that we, from our perspective, from an engineering report perspective, when the reports come in from the public on anything that they would consider, we would have to look at that and consider how we would implement that, because this is an iceberg effect. As we look at the top of it, it appears to be very simple in nature, but underneath there's many, many other factors that we have to consider. So in clarifying what this report is, this is just the options report that we felt as though were reasonable based on the information that is out there in the rest of British Columbia, not something that we were looking to create some novel ideas. We are not recreating the wheel here. We are simply bringing forward the stuff that exists.
Councillor Ross, Councillor Hamett.
Okay, I appreciate that, Mr. Allen. And I think my concern was that there were some options here that I just thought were untenable, and there was at least one option here that I think could be done, but it still has to be approached in a different way. And I think not all the concerns have been addressed through this report. I think some of the concerns will be addressed through some of the suggested alternatives. I would, this is, I don't want to commit to anything. I'm concerned about committing to something today. I'm not, okay.
Good, we're not?
All right, I'm not committing to anything today, that's fine, because I have a lot of notes.
Councillor Hamett.
I understand that, I think it was Canafest and Penticton that just recently installed water meters and had an opt-out program, and in order to set the rates for those people that decided to opt out, it was a flat rate, and I think we're going to be looking at a substantially higher flat rate, but as an example, you might want to let people know what those communities are charging people that chose to opt out.
So, Mr. Mayor,
from those
would you like me to add that in? Would you like me to answer this?
Yes, please.
So in Fort St. John, they went to an opt-out rate, a flat rate, based on the amount of water a person could consume, not suggesting or implying that a person is not conserving water or they're using the most amount of water they could use. Fort St. John was, I believe, $3,000 a year. Kamloops was $3,750 a year for a flat rate, because what they suggested was and this is not something we're making up, so I would just like to be clarifying this. This is the factual information. So when we provide you this information, these are the facts. This is not what we're suggesting for our community. What we are telling you are the facts. This is what their opt-out rate is in their bylaw. That's where staff stops. So that is the flat rate that those communities are providing. It has nothing to do with us. That is exactly what they're providing.
Councillor Butler.
Well, those communities are a little far-fetched. That's obviously not an opt-out program. That's a twist your arm up your back kind of program. I forgot what I was going to say. That's just so ridiculous. What were we talking about before this? Ridiculous.
Okay, I will give you a second to
collect my thoughts
while I love to Ms. Seminoff.
Thank you, Donna Seminoff. I researched a bit about this, and like Castlegar and other places, they were really strongly trying to encourage people to get meters, so they offered a high opt-out, so people felt cornered. The only way some kind of an opt-out would work for Grand Forks, as a consideration that I can think of right now, is if there was fair representation of people who don't have meters to discuss it, so that people would feel that we're all, being treated fairly. So that's the only way I could consider that, so that people weren't feeling they were coerced into a situation. I guess the big question is, what is the goal, right? Is the commitment to try to get people to conserve by raising the price of water or quartering them into that, or might there be other things? Like, basically, I wanted to say is when we make our decisions, can we take care that the decisions are being respectful to the people, and the approach is actually environmentally friendly? If we don't need water meters, then to get people to conserve, then we're actually contributing to pollution because we're buying things we don't need. So take care to think about the environment, and also what's the most cost-effective way at this point with the money left to conserve in Grand Forks.
Thank you. I have Mr. Treveri and Councillor Butler and then Hamett.
Yeah, Frank Treveri. I'm one of the people that opted in after being opposed to the water meters, and I opted in because I felt that there was no other alternative. Council had passed a motion that they were going to install water meters. I was opposed to it. I was disappointed. Matter of fact, I was involved in presenting the petition. I was disappointed, but I accepted council's decision because that was their democratic right. Okay, I wrote a letter to council. Matter of fact, earlier this spring, expressing that very same opinion. Now, I'm at a point where, okay, should have I installed a water meter because I didn't want one? Okay, so now, am I going to be able to opt out? Obviously, if you are going to have a situation where I can opt out, then I will want to opt out. If the rate for putting a pit meter is going to be much lower than initially indicated, then if I can't opt out, then I would like my meter removed from inside the house and put outside as a pit meter. There's all of those parameters that you're going to have to take a look at. Okay, that's my comment on this issue.
I remembered my question that I had with CAO that I forgot earlier. In the report from Urban Systems, it states that with the opt-out program, one of the disadvantages could be that the city may be responsible for paying overhead plus profit for the meters that are not installed. And I'd just like to ask our CAO, as of today's date and his discussions with the contractor, if this is still a fear that we will be responsible for paying up the contractor on their contract, or is the contractor at this point willing to negate all of those fees with profit?
Mr. Mayor, I can't discuss something from in camera.
Okay.
But it's on our report here, that's why I'm asking.
Yes, that's right.
Like I said, Mr. Mayor, I would only be able to discuss things once contract negotiations would be held in camera and decision to council would be made. I'm not at liberty to discuss something that's under Section 9.
Yeah, the pause meter program.
Councillor Hamett.
I too share Mr. Treveri's concerns, and I think that's partially why the flat rates in those other communities has been determined to be so high, is to deter people from not having one, because people that, like Mr. Treveri and other people that have got them installed, if we turned around now and said, okay, well, you can opt out and it's not going to cost, people that decide to opt out aren't going to have to pay significantly more for water, then we're going to have a lot of people saying, well, I'm going to have mine taken out then because I don't want it, or backtracking. So there's going to have to be some deterrent so that we're not facing an expense of having to go back and go backwards in this process with the ones that have been installed and the money that's already been spent. So, and the other comment I wanted to make was regarding what Donna Semenov said about what is the purpose of having the water meters too. And part of it is, like, if I lived in a 400-foot cabin and the people next to me had a 4,000 square foot house and 6 children, I wouldn't want to expect to pay a flat hydro rate. you know, so I'm not sure why we would want to pay a flat water rate when some of you might be consuming very little water, and your neighbors who have 4 children are bathing every day and doing laundry and sprinkling the lawns are going to be consuming much more water than you. I just think it's equitable and it's a fair way, just the same as it is with hydro. So.
Okay, hang on. I have in order me, Councillor Butler, Mr. Treveri, Ms. Semenoff, and
Barry Jarvis.
Barry. So, me quickly. Oh, okay. I lost control of my list. Anyways, people point at the large amounts of money for, say, Kamloops or whatever for their opt-out program, and they say, oh, well, you're penalizing people or you're doing it to force them. In reality, this is what it's going to cost to have unlimited water, because that's what they're getting with a flat rate. They can turn on all their taps and they can let them go. So what would be the max if a person does that? And that's where they come up with these rates. Now, you can view it as, oh, it's punishing to make you, it's strong-arming you. No, if you want to pay for unlimited anything, guess what? You pay way more than people that it's metered or regulated. So that was my 2 cents worth. Now I have Councillor Butler.
I was just going to say that the fears of people wanting to have their meters removed with the opt-out program really isn't founded, because from what we've heard from staff and from council, most people are in favor of this project, right? So people wouldn't want to have them removed because the majority of the community wants them, right?
Yeah, but we just heard from Mr. Treveri who would opt not to have his use, and I'm sure there was a few others.
That's just a minority group.
Okay, Mr. Treveri.
Since you did it.
Yes. In terms of an equitable, I don't want to get back into the original debate that we had way back more than a year ago, so I'm going to make this very short. However, an equitable situation, that the example that Councillor Hamett pointed to, that's not equitable either, right? I have 0.47 acres of land, my lot. I pay taxes on that 0.47 acres. I contribute to the tax base of the city of Grand Forks, right? And there are all kinds of services that I do not use, right? Yet I gladly, well, not gladly, but I do pay the taxes, right? And don't use those particular services. The only service that I was getting was that little amount of water, extra water that I needed to keep my yard green, right? And so it's not necessarily equitable that you know, because I use more water, right? And someone uses less water, that I should pay more when my taxes are more than my neighbor who uses less water. Okay, so there has to be some way of balancing that also. But that would be up to the rates committee, I would suspect, to come up with some sort of situation or come up with an example, and I have all kinds of ideas in regard to those particular things, because I have been appointed on the rates committee that has never met, and anyways, so that's the situation, and I really do believe that there would be a lot of people that would want to opt out. Okay, because I did not go happily into getting the water meter, but I respected the democratic process, and I agreed to have the water meter installed.
Thank you. Ms. Semenoff?
Okay. From reading the reports and experiences here, my understanding is the big goal is to figure out how to conserve water, and in the process of that, we're eligible for government grants. to help pay for infrastructure replacement. That pretty much sums it up. And we're wanting, this is great that people are sharing the different things because we're wanting to treat people with respect according to workplace policy and trying to figure out how to be fair for everyone. There's one thing that I wanted to bring up also. Councillor Ross, there was the motion to not commodify water. In many people's views, pricing the water per volume is commodification. I just wanted to mention that. As far as RF, it might be a reason some people might be nervous about having RF, the meters in their home. I want you to know, I don't know if you know about what's happening in Parliament right now, but recently there was a 3-day presentations from scientists and others, and there was the Health Committee, and they made a request of Health Canada that they asked them to provide why they haven't addressed or taken seriously 140 studies that show potential harm to humans, and they have not provided that information. Health Canada has not provided it yet to Parliament, and there's also almost 200 scientists who petitioned the UN regarding asking for stricter guidelines. So this is something that's happening right now. There's also things regarding labeling. So the RF is an issue, and it might affect some of what's happening.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to take.
It was on the end of your list. You got a new list?
What?
You got a new list?
Sure. I got all kinds of that. Anyways, I have the gentleman here.
Barry Jarvis, acting Mayor Croc. I want to follow along for a second on what Mr. Treveri said. My wife and I retired out here in 2008 for a number of reasons. One of them was the fact that cost of living was relatively inexpensive, comparable to the major metropolitan areas. The city, over the last 8 years or 7.5 years we've been here, have gradually had that creep up, and I see the water issue, being a significant cost increase to everybody that lives in the city of Grand Forks. My wife and I are here for 4 months of the year, but yet I pay for water 12 months of the year. The water is shut off in my place for 4 months of the year. I get no credit for that, but I do have a large yard. But nobody gives me credit for the time I'm not here. The city seems to be able to pick and choose when they want to do individual billing, such as the garbage pickup and so on. But the water issue, I'm not here for 4 months of the year. Water is shut off totally, but I use more in the summer because I have a large yard. Now, I don't want to be penalized for that, but currently it's probably fair. But don't keep on raising my utility rates, because if I got to pay city rates, if I got to pay big city rates, I want big city services. I want sidewalks, I want roads, etc. That's what we're going to wind up with.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you. Before we continue on with more speakers, we are looking to look back at where we would like to receive this and then go to for some more input from the public, but not like chain letters and stuff like that.
Or nasty letters.
Or nasty letters. So, okay, do we actually have a motion on the table?
No.
Okay, so I'll take this gentleman back here.
My name is Phil Merrigan. I live by John Hutton. I live here in Grand Forks for 55 years. Now, I am retired. We're on low income with the wife. I'm on a corner lot right now. I spend a lot of money on property of city property. It's green, nice there. I enjoy it. When the meters go in, I haven't got them. Do I have to water the city property and pay for it, or I have a lower rate?
You would pay for the water you use.
A lot of people know where I live.
Yeah.
At my place, I spend a lot of money even the city property, keep it the corner nice and clean. It's a
Yeah.
corner lot.
Yes.
I got 20 feet there and 20 feet on the other side, and
Yeah.
it's perfectly green.
We would, like personally, I would like to see all services we use, everything we do as user pay. So if you are gone for 4 months, you shouldn't be charged all year at a flat rate, right? So it makes sense. So less use. That has been brought up before about the watering and city boulevards and stuff. People do what they want to do. Some people have said they're not going to water the boulevard in front of their house and they're going to let it go brown. That is their choice. I water my boulevard when I do my yard because it is part and makes the whole neighborhood looks nicer. And I am going to pay for that. And I have 5 acres within the city that I pay taxes on. And if I wanted to keep all of that as lawn, that would cost me a lot of money. But that's my choice. And obviously it goes against conservation and stuff, which I'll choose the other way, which is just to water the part of my property that has to be watered. I have Councillor Ross.
I'll sell my place and the water will break my heart.
Hey.
I think sometimes I get a little disconcerted with is really we're talking about a first world problem here that really only exists in North America. I don't know anywhere else in the world where we water 2 acres or an acre just so we can have green lawns, or 5 acres or 3 acres, and then we talk about our boulevards. And I don't know. I've been to a lot of places, and this is a real first world problem. And you know, like what's wrong with the color brown? And you know, I just think we need to start behaving differently. It's you know, it's this thing about this rights language. I talked about rights language before, is instead of talking about in terms of it's my right, let's talk about in terms of responsibility. And just getting back to this, we have options here. They're not great. We can roll this out in a way that I think is palatable. But in the end, what is like Ms. Semenoff has said, what's our goal here? Our goal is to conserve water. We all agree. This presentation today, and I don't know, I haven't seen a manifesto is 200 pages. I've never seen a 200-page manifesto. A manifesto is a statement. It's a statement. I'd love to see the statement. So I just think we need to keep our eye on the goal here, which is water conservation, which is what this was all about in the first place. And if you still insist on having your 1 or 2 or 5 acres of green lawn, that's your decision. Those are life choices. That is a luxury that we have which is a first world problem. And I think we need to really step back as a society and as individuals and start really examining our personal consumption habits. But I would like to move forward and start to really dig deeper into these alternatives that we've been offered here and be a little bit more creative in how we roll them out. And I have a great idea that involves a postcard.
Okay. Okay. Councillor Butler is proposing a motion. I hope that the motion would be to receive it and ask for written public input. Again, not form letters, and brought back to the COTW in July for consideration.
That's pretty much what I was going to say. That's good. Hey, we're making agreements here on things. Yeah, I wanted to refer this back to staff to collect more information on options from Councillor Ross and a few from the public as well, and to bring back a larger list of options to the Committee of the Whole in July, which originally is what if you go back and look on the tapes from February when we put this motion forward in the first place, that was the intention, was to bring forward at least 20 options, I believe our CAO said at that time, so that council would have a good list of things to choose from.
Okay, So somewhere in there was a motion. I would like to see it like, we'd like to get that written public input. Part of that would be the manifesto, and if we could do it in say a 10-day period.
I'm not reading until you get paid.
No, but it's written public input that they were presenting to us, right? So any other written, but if we had a time limit on it, so it doesn't go even longer, so if in that motion we could include, say, a 10-day.
Well, it would have to be before the written period for the next committee of the whole, like there's the date for submissions for the committee of the whole meeting, which is like a week or two before the meeting, so that's when they'd have to be in by. But yeah, short options, not 200-page options, like a one-page written option.
Okay.
Just, if I could, Mr. Mayor, one of the things that we have to consider from staff is staff's availability to put all of this together, because we're working on statutory obligations for the organization. So if we get this up to the last minute, we have to drop all of our statutory obligations that we're trying to achieve and put the staff time together to be able to do this, because our staff isn't just kind of waiting for this stuff. We're working, and we have to fit this into our work plan. So if we're going to provide a report and assemble information, we're going to need the time to do this. So I have to consider staff, those that are on holidays, potentially, because we're going into the summer months when staff are generally on holidays. They booked holidays in advance. One of the things that I would hate to have to do is rescind somebody's holidays and their plans that they've undertaken. So I have to consider this. So if I could get a timeline that would be realistic for us to achieve, because the deadline for this would be us to have our reports into the corporate officer for my review on Friday, July 7th. No, sorry, they would have to be in for my review for July 10th. The reports have to be in for me to review, which happens on Friday. The information would have to be received from the public at no later July 3rd, and then that would give our staff the weekend to start to put this together. So staff would have to be working over the weekend.
June 25th.
If we go back a week prior to that.
10 days from today, June 25th.
Yeah, if we can get the information in. But what we would ask though is that so we could proper represent it from the public, that we get it not in the form of a chain letter. If we could get like the individual representation from the community members, so we could fully understand all of the issues. So it would help us clarify, to present it to council in the form of a report that outlines all of the items that we're looking at.
And as brief as possible.
Okay. Yeah, 1 second, just to make sure that all the ducks are in a row. Councillor Butler was making a motion, and a seconder for the motion.
I'm not clear on the motion.
Okay, so.
Do you want to?
Okay, what I have is the motion to receive and ask for written public input, not in the form letter, but actual input, and brought back to the COTW for July with the deadlines for submission as was suggested. Yeah. So move.
Could I just add clearly titled water meter input, and emailed or submitted to the front desk, emailed to info@grandforks.ca, or hand delivered to the front desk, so we know that we can stamp date it for receipt, so the closing period is there, so we're not.
Oh, rather than random emails.
Yeah.
And no more than 400 words. Yeah, brief and to the point.
What? 400 words just to order breakfast?
It could even be point form, just something easy to read.
Okay, I don't think that the 400 words made it into the motion.
Really?
Didn't it?
His words, what he suggested.
So are you, that was a friendly amendment, are you suggesting a friendly amendment?
Yeah,
400 words?
Yeah, 500 words.
500 words.
One page.
One page. It could be one word. Okay, and a seconder for that motion,
Including 500 words in there?
including
No less, no more than 500.
no more than 500, preferably fit on one page, not double-sided, carefully spaced. and-
Can we get this read back?
Legible, depending on the size of the print.
And a good use of white space. Can we get that semi-motion
So it says,
read?
to receive and refer back to staff and public for written input of no more than 500 words.
Per letter.
Per letter.
Everybody
To be received by the
To-
25th, directed to the front desk at City Hall.
June 4 p.m.
Yeah, 40 Wait a second. We've got a couple things. Brought back to the.
Oh, okay.
Bring forward to the July 20th meeting and to be received by no later than June 25th.
At 4 p.m.
At 4 p.m. at the front desk of the City Hall or through info@grantworks.ca.
Okay, we've
And
had,
clearly titled.
and clearly titled, and then we've had
Another friendly amendment, which would be one submission per person.
From residents of Grand Forks.
From residents of Grand Forks proper.
So water,
Yeah.
through water utility customers.
Yeah, water, yeah.
Okay.
City water utilities.
City water utility customers.
Hey, we will, then Councillor Ross can do that first. She's gonna city council.
Why would you want to?
It just said you had to be a water utility.
I'm a city councillor.
Okay, so you're okay
I
then?
can present my ideas. I got voted in to be a representative.
okay, control people. Settle down.
There's a pot calling.
Can we have that read back one more time?
Okay, now we will have the official reading of the amazing amended motion. Okay, hang on. We're going live. Houston, we've got an answer. Hang on 1 second.
I think we are. Yes, we do. This is a full day. I have to take a personal break.
Okay, here we go.
To receive and refer back to staff and public city utility customers for written input of no more than 500 words per letter regarding collection of more options, and further bring forward to the July 20th meeting to be received by no later than June 25th at 4 p.m. and clearly titled clearly titled water meters to be received at info@grandforks.ca or the front desk of City Hall.
Water meter input.
Water meter? Water meter.
Water meter input
Okay.
and
Clearly titled water meter input.
and the part about one submission per person,
For household.
per household.
No, necessarily.
No.
I mean,
Per person.
Versus the municipally shared expenses.
Utility customers. Okay, are we there?
With, what did you say?
One submission per person.
Per person?
Per person,
Okay.
because there could be two people in a residence with
Per
a boat
household,
sale.
not per person, but per household.
No.
No.
Because what if your hubby writes something, you don't like it?
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Well, she would nuke it.
Get the hubby out. Kick out the hubby.
Okay, I am going to, are we clear sort of with our motion? I'm gonna take one more speaker, will they finalize that? And then we'll call for the question.
You mentioned public city customers in that motion,
What is it?
I believe.
Water utility.
Water
customers.
utility customers. Well,
Whoever pays water.
It's okay.
I'm not so sure, should it be limited to those people?
They're the ones that will be impacted.
Yes, but.
Yeah.
But the owners of the property and rental ability,
Yeah.
it excludes them, their voice. If they own the
Yes.
property and they have renters, do the renters only get to have a voice on the water?
Okay, hang on.
They're the customers.
Mr. Treveri, then we're going to the question.
There's nothing wrong with that. If you have a rental home, right, you're the customer. You're.
The utilities assigned to
the
the
owner
renter.
of the property is the customer.
He's saying the owner.
Yeah, it's the owner of the property, not the renter.
Okay, question. Oh, do you want to reread it?
No. No?
No.
Good. We're good.
We're assuming it's awesome.
Okay.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously, whoever does.
So that date was July 3rd or June 25th?
June 25th.
June 25th.
Okay.
Deadline, 4 o'clock.
Thank you.
While we're waiting for Mayor to get back.
Just a quick question, that
Sure.
trip, how will that information get out to the public that they are going to be able to provide input?
I'm sure you'll let us know.
Through the usual channels, which are the city can post it on their website. Word of mouth in a small town travels faster than anything else we know. The awesome support we get from the media, such as GFTV and Mr. Johnson, would go a long way. And I'm sure the Gazette is watching.
Yeah, they are.
Mr. Johnson's thing, and hopefully they will process that, and I'm not sure if the city would actually do an ad or not, so we'll have to look at it. Okay, hang on. Hang on, I'm back, I quit.
Well, have to install revolving doors here.
Sorry, Frank, I thought we were going to be very brief.
You're not going to lose quorum if I leave.
Okay, we are at 4F, which is financial asset.
We're going to have to whip through these last couple items if we could.
Okay.
So we can go to the in-camera meeting.
I've been waiting here for about 4 hours. Are we going to get to questions from the public? Or are you going to adjourn the meeting before we get the questions from the public? Because I've specifically come here, I have many concerns, and I'm going to limit it to one, but I want the opportunity to be able to express that concern.
I would just ask the gallery to be patient, and we will try to get around to the discussions.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Thompson.
I was just wondering if rather than having the staff reports or management reports read out, if we could just receive them en masse. Because we've all got them in our agendas, we've all read them, rather than doing it individually, unless there's something specific that our administrator feels should be pointed out.
There is only one item that I'd like to address as coming as a late item, if I could, Mr. Mayor. It's not as a late, I'm not amending the agenda, but it's already on the, it's the water restrictions.
Yeah.
So if I could just touch base on that in the one report.
That in the late items. So, all councils in favor, can I have a motion to receive the reports? Councillor Thompson, Councillor Krog,
I do just have one question.
Councillor Butler.
I just, actually two things. Sewer main flushing and camera lines under water and sewer. What are the camera lines that are mentioned there?
Camera, Mr. Mayor, cameraing the sewers is when we go into the sewer lines
Yeah.
to do inspections.
We're doing that right now?
So we do inspections of the sewer mains.
Okay. And the reconductor process on Riverside, what is the purpose of those upgrades?
Mr. Mayor, to refer that to the manager of operations.
Mr. Reid.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On Riverside, there was some line upgrades, so a different size line that was put in. There was 5 poles changed. So it's quite a process going over the highway and stuff, so we got that contractor doing that work right now.
So I'm just wondering why are we doing increased upgrades to those lines to carry more electricity?
Currently, they have aged copper, and they're brittle, so it's kind of a...
Just regular maintenance?
Yeah, safety.
I have a question for our manager of building and operations in regards to deer feeding complaints. To the deer feeding complaints. Have we had any significant results documented?
Mayor, I've only had one complaint since we did that initial round, and that was not even for feeding. The fella had a water trough out, and that's the only one we've received.
And another item is the follow-up on the camps along the city's riverbanks. How are we making out on those?
Continuously moving them. Every time we got 3 more camps that were moved here in the past month, and they just relocate them. So now we'll go back to the Black Train Bridge and find them down there again and move them on. But it's continuous.
The permit values $868,000 and change. Is this strictly from January of this year?
Yep. Yeah, those are current. That's right to year end, December 31st. Yeah.
Motion. We have a motion on the table.
To receive,
Yes.
and then we could have, if we require a motion to change, or to refer to council to change the sprinkling, or to implement stage 2. Okay, so that's not.
I just want to see where the information came from in the one manager's report.
Yes.
So, Mr. Mayor, the fire chief was made aware that the fire chief monitors the snowpacks annually for our community in preparation of annual flooding. He monitors that and reports back to ourselves, and we work with in developing our EOC needs, which is our Emergency Operations Center needs, in preparation each year. The fire chief reported back that we are at 1% of our normal snowpack readings for our water availability coming from the watershed. So the snowpack, that means that we are 99% efficient at where we normally are. So later on today, you're going to hear a report on water restrictions, an amendment to water restrictions for our community, so that will be where this came from. It's a proactive measure.
So all in favor? So carried. Under proposed bylaws for discussion, we have our Chief Financial Officer in regards to the bylaw 2016 for 2014-2018 Financial Plan Amendment 2. And the recommendation is that Council gives its first 3 readings to bylaw 216, 2014-2018 Financial Plan Amendment 2 at the June 29, 2015 regular meeting of Council. May I have a motion to do so? Councillor Thompson. Do I have a second? Councillor Butler. All in favor? So carried.
You can just have general discussion
Water. Yeah. So on our late items, we're going to be discussing the implementation of the Stage 2 water restriction plan.
Oh, it is.
Right here.
Oh, sorry. My apologies. Item 4G. Under item 4G, under corporate services, a verbal report is going to be given on update regarding the Canafest event, and council is to receive this information purposes only. We'll be giving the report. Okay. So our deputy corporate officer, Ms. Wayne, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to give you a quick update on Canafest and where we are at in working with Mr. Vervea to get it going and organized. He's certainly provided us with all of the paperwork that we've required to date there's a couple of things, concerns that we have from a city perspective in terms of having an extra 2,000 people potentially in the community over that weekend. So we are looking at extending camping options up into Dick Bartlett Park for a 3 or 4 day period of time. And we'll have to also use the field on the west side of Dick Bartlett for extra parking. There's going to be an additional cost to the city because we will require more staff to man the campground and the parking. Make sure that the washrooms, both up at Dick Bartlett and in our regular campground, are taken care of, and that just around the community, we're prepared for that many people. I mean, we have a small community. We don't generally have an extra 2,000 people wandering around. Even on probably our biggest week of the year, which would be during the GFI, we may see that many people through the community, but we're thinking we're going to have a lot of extra. So we're looking at additional costs, somewhere in the amount of $10,000. That's just to give council a heads up on that. The other piece for Canafest is we will be bringing back to the June 29th meeting a request for an extension to the noise. That was never, a decision was never made on that, and Mr. Verbeek will require that for the weekend.
Will we also be receiving information from the RCMP? According to a CBC News report, Mr. Verbeek had stated that he will be contacting the RCMP in regards to marijuana distribution at the fest.
I believe that's sort of out of the city's jurisdiction. The RCMP will manage anything to do with medicinal marijuana. We have received information on the liquor license from the RCMP, and I do know that it is in Mr. Verbeek's event plan to make sure that there's adequate security, and the RCMP are informed, the ambulance and fire department are also informed.
Yes. So it's just for the record, I know it's out of our jurisdiction. Councillor Hamett.
My understanding is when this presentation was originally brought to us, we voted to agree to allowing the Canafest event to take place, providing there was no medicinal marijuana on site, because originally that was part of his plan. He wasn't going to be providing alcohol. It was an alcohol-free event, but there would be medicinal marijuana on site. And this council voted to agree to the festival, providing there was no medicinal marijuana. And then at a later meeting, he requested that we allow him a liquor license for the event, which we did. But now you're saying that there's going to be medicinal marijuana on site?
So would you like to make a motion to refer this back to staff to get further information and bring it back to the table?
Just a question. Do we have the answer?
Mr. Mayor, we don't have the authority to approve medicinal marijuana. At this point, we're not approving a dispensary or anything. That falls solely in the jurisdiction of the federal government.
No, but we had asked for permission
Had a resolution on the
to
table.
have he had asked permission for us to make a motion to allow him to have this festival, and this is what his plan was. And we said, yes, we will pass the motion and allow him to have this festival, providing no medicinal marijuana. So we have it in writing from him that he was not going to provide medicinal marijuana.
So, if I could, Mr. Mayor, he can ask for you to approve something that's way outside of your authority to do so, but it's not within your purview to provide that authority to do that. You can, if the question is if he's allowed to have this from a federal license perspective, the federal license has not been referred to the city that I'm aware of for approval for medicinal marijuana.
Councillor Hamett.
Our approval was given for him to have, agree to have the festival here. And we had an option of saying, yes, we will allow the festival, or no, we will not allow the festival. We were going to say, no, you could not have the festival if you were going to be providing medicinal marijuana. And he came back and said, I will not be providing any medicinal marijuana. So we agreed to allow to have the festival at that time.
A resolution was made based on that contingency.
It was contingent.
So if, I know it's out of our jurisdiction, but at the same token, the resolution was there by City Council.
But that's what you approved, and that's what we're moving forward with. We're not approving any medicinal marijuana, and council's not being asked to. You passed that resolution and that's it. Staff can't go down there now and stop him from bringing in marijuana. Only the RCMP can do that. You've approved the event based on the fact that there's no medicinal marijuana.
Right.
And that's where we said that's what we're stopping with too, no medicinal marijuana. But if they choose to bring it in by the truckload after the fact, the RCMP will deal with that after the fact.
Councillor Ross.
I would suggest that perhaps we need to remind the organizer of this event of the agreement that, or contract that he had between the city and himself for this event, that there would be no dispensary. We said that he could have promotional materials there, but no dispensary, and that was a contract between the city and this individual.
You may need to be reminded of that.
I agree with Councillor Ross because this is a gray area and it's coming in the back door. Our deputy corporate officer is Ms. Wint.
Thank you. We are moving forward with Mr. Verbeoff. He is fully aware that he's not to be dispensing medicinal marijuana at the event. That was the agreement, and that's what we are operating on.
Okay.
Okay. Yep, absolutely.
So the resolution holds up. The gentleman in the back of the cameras.
Les Johnson. So just to clarify, I won't be able to buy any pot with my dispensary cards from Vancouver dispensaries.
No.
Is that true?
Absolutely correct.
Okay, thank you.
The gentleman in the back.
I don't know where Mr. Vershegen is, but we need his Latin terms that he used at one of the council meetings, ultra vires. Council, when approving this, was and making that stipulation, was acting ultra vires, beyond their jurisdiction. That's what the term means. And the corporate officer should have informed council that they can't put that stipulation on because it is beyond their jurisdiction. That jurisdiction belongs to the federal government.
But it's our decision whether or not.
Thank you. Councillor Krog.
Yes, I would argue that Mr. Treveri's point, and it is our public park, and it's our rules of what they can do, right, for use of that park. If they don't want to use the park and they want their medical marijuana, then they're fine to do that in somebody else's park. So I don't think we're overstepping our boundaries or messing with federal. We just said, yeah, you can have that event here. It's just like if we said no alcohol, even though you're allowed to petition to have beer gardens and stuff. If we say that for use of our property, then that's our right.
I concur with Councillor Krog. The motion was put forward, a resolution is put forward that you're able to have the event on city property, but not what is going to occur at the event. So we're within our jurisdiction. Councillor Ross.
Do we need a motion to receive for information?
Yeah.
I'd like to move that we receive for information the update regarding the Canafest event.
I'll second that.
Councillor Hamett. The lady in the second row.
Hi, Donna Semenoff. A question about the $10,000. So when someone holds an event, the city pays for things to do with the event, and is the reason the city is agreeing to do this is because it brings in more tourists? Is that the thinking behind how it goes?
So in respect to an event like this, if we do get 2,000 people, and we do a conservative estimate that they're spending $300 a person in our community, that's $600,000 injected into our local economy. When council makes a decision like this, you have an event, a community event fund in the budget line. Typically, we don't want to be doing these things, but when we start to get into these larger events, it becomes a balance of community interest. That's why we're bringing it to council, because council could say today that, hey, wait a minute, we don't want to do that, and we're going to pull the pin on this. But the idea behind this is the overall impact to the community could be significant. We're just making council aware of this. This is going to require some amendment to our policy in the future, bringing this stuff forward, because the larger events that we have, if we start to see these events grow, then council has to make the decision. Is that person receiving financial gain as a result of this? And are we then in a position where we're assisting? So we have to ask those questions, and it creates a policy that drives us. So that's what we have to learn from here.
Any other questions or concerns? To the gentleman in the third row, I believe.
Just a response to...
Could you identify yourself, sir? You can do the first one.
Yeah, Frank Treveri. I didn't introduce myself for a while. Just a response to Mr. Cobb's comment on being within their rights. What you're, and don't get me wrong, I really hope that they'll respect your wishes, right? However, just to play the devil's advocate, if I was an individual that wanted to attend that particular event and I needed medical marijuana in order to participate, right? Because I needed that medicine, right? It could be a constitutional issue. The city could be faced with a constitutional issue if they wanted to push it far enough to that it is my right. Right? It's an event that is being presented in the community, and as a result, I need that medicine, and you're preventing me from being able to participate, and you have no right to do that. That's all I want to say, and because sometimes council gets into a situation not looking ahead at what the consequences may be. Okay?
And
Councillor Crog.
I totally agree with parts of what you just said. My understanding of federal legislation when it comes to medical marijuana, you get it, or you're supposed to obtain it from a licensed pharmacy or distribution area, and it is not supposed to be consumed in public, right? So it's supposed to be taken back to your residence and used, not taken to the beach or whatever.
Can we call the question?
Yeah.
All in favor of the motion? So carried. Okay, we'll go back to our lead item, which was the recommendation to implement Stage 2 water restriction plan. Councillor Crog on Stage 2.
Could I just add one thing? I just got a message that I'd like to add. Good news. The city just received funding for the wastewater treatment upgrades through our funding that we've applied for. So we just got a grant for, I believe, the neighborhood of $400,000.
Nice.
Wonderful. We just got word.
Good work.
So do I have a seconder on that motion?
We don't need second.
No. No, okay, sorry. All right, so any discussion? No? All in favor of the implementation of Stage 2?
Well, what is it?
Stage 2.
Water restrictions. Can we have a...
Sure. Can I just get the
manager of operations, Mr. Reed, could you give us an update on what Stage 2 is? I believe we have it.
Yeah.
Okay, so, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sprinkling regulations right now, currently Stage 1 alternate days for watering. Stage 2 would go to twice a week watering. And then Stage 3 is once a week watering.
So I can't water my garden.
If I understand you correctly, Mr. Reed, so the designated days are put in this plan for the even and the odd, right? But it's only twice a week from what I noticed on here.
Mr. Mayor, the even and odd would stay the same. It would be Saturday, Tuesday for the even. Odd would be Sundays, Wednesdays.
Thank you. Councillor Butler, do you have a question?
Yeah, are we liable for everyone's gardens that die? Are we going to get sued for everybody's gardens dying? I mean, it's dry here. I'm mulched, but my garden's not going to survive on twice a week.
Yeah.
To our manager, Mr. Reed first, and then Ms. Councillor Crog.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There is a provision there for flower gardens, vegetable gardens, newly planted lawns and landscapes may be hand watered at any time using handheld nozzle only, no manual sprinklers.
Do you know how long it would take to water my vegetable garden and my flower garden?
Councillor Krog. Okay, just a pet peeve. I hate it when people bring up the fact that, oh, you could be facing a lawsuit for this, for installing water, but you could be facing a lawsuit if you restrict watering to somebody's garden. So unless there's a lawsuit, don't be saying there's going to be lawsuits. Now, this recommendation is based on what's happening throughout the Okanagan and throughout the province of British Columbia. And we're taking steps to limit the effects of drought and climate change, which is actually coming. So,
Councillor Butler, and then
I'd just like to refer to the Curdell-Lydell report that was referred to earlier that says that Grand Forks has an abundant supply of water even during serious drought conditions. So to say that this has to be done, we're not even enforcing the sprinkling regulations we have already. Why don't we start by doing that first?
Yes.
Yes.
to the gallery.
Frank Sherberry. You're going to kill my garden. I've spent a good part of the spring planting a garden. I have a mother-in-law next door to me that is 86 years old and she lives for her garden. She literally lives for her garden. And what is going to happen to that garden if we can only water the garden twice a week? It will be completely dead. Completely. A lot of you people don't garden, right? And you don't realize that in our climate, the garden will not survive. Absolutely not survive if we can only water twice a week.
Thank you for your concern. The lady in the second row had a question. No, didn't. Councillor Ross.
I'm not really sure who Mr. Treveri is referring to. You people? I don't know who you people are. I've never met you people. I don't know, like, if you can sprinkle twice a week with manual, like, your sprinklers, and then have handhold nozzles at any, what is, for flower gardens, and that's not enough to keep your garden alive? Like, you can handhold pretty much any time, and then twice a week do pretty extensive soaking with manual sprinklers. I don't understand, like, is that really not enough water? And you people know about water, so that's a little insulting.
Well, I didn't mean to insult you.
And
what I was saying, that some of the people that are making the regulations don't necessarily garden and don't realize. I've been gardening for 40 years in this community, and I know what the situation is like. And I also know I can't hand water all of my garden. I cannot. It's impossible.
Between two sprinklings, good soaking sprinklings a week. You can't supplement with her water. Wow.
Well,
I will give you a bit of leeway, but
I think that we need some lessons.
the debate is starting to try to be patient. To the person in the front, please.
Beverly
Water dance.
Beverly Tripp. I think it would be really wise for the council to look at what's happening. Like, is the aquifer really stressed, or is there enough water there before they would put people in a position?
Why do we have to wait for it to be stressed?
Councillor Ross, you're out of order.
And as Councillor Butler said, and the Wood-Lydell report said that there was plenty of water even in drought conditions. Why would we subject the residents of the city to this kind of punishing situation if there's plenty of water?
You know what? Suck it dry.
Okay, can I?
Suck it dry.
1 second.
Councillor Ross, you're out of order again. Councillor Krog.
I will, there was a comment from the gallery. I don't think Councillor Ross heard it, but it was directed to her, which was, do you even have a garden? You know what, she does, right?
You want to come to my house? I use 16
I'm
gallons.
sorry, you're looking at me, and I'm not the individual that directed that. I understand that you're not agriculturalist.
Mr. Treveri.
But don't accuse me of saying something when
Mr.
I'm not.
Treveri, this is your second warning. To the lady in the front, second row.
Okay, so the Carewood-Lydell Water Conservation Plan, so they talk about water conservation. They said in times of drought there isn't a problem. So to become strict with this for a couple of months in the year seems a bit strange. It can affect food security and other issues and unrest in the community. I question taking this action. I think it's good that we're figuring out water conservation and we're educating, but forcing this on the people when we don't have a problem by a water conservation plan and it tells us that we don't have a problem, why would you enforce something like this?
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Your arguments support the water meter program, because if you paid on what you use, rather than just having unlimited access to sprinkling regulations as they are, don't hold water with me.
Councillor Butler.
First of all, when we have water meters, we're still under sprinkling regulations. You don't have unlimited access to use as much water as you can pay for. You still have to abide by the sprinkling regulations with water meters. Number two, our sustainable community plan says that we are to promote the 100-mile diet. We are to promote gardening within this town. We are known as a garden city. This is something that I heard has already been implemented in a soy use, and it seems to be a flat thing across the board. It's not looking at individual aquifers. I don't think we just need to copycat other cities. I would like to see that we, number one, enforce the sprinkling regulations that are already in place, and maybe cut down, restrict car washing. I know that's another restriction that's usually in there, is you're not allowed to wash cars during, do something like that, but don't restrict people's ability to grow food. I mean, we're not going to have food coming up from California soon if they run out of water. We need our gardens here.
Because they didn't put in sprinkling?
To the gentleman in
California?
Les Johnson, I would agree with her that it's not going to stop people from midnight sprinkling, but if you had water meters, at least you'd know that they were doing that because they would be paying more. Right now, as it is, nobody seems to want to rat out their neighbors for sprinkling all night long. And there's no way of knowing that that's happening unless they do. Just wanted to point that out.
Councillor Butler.
Right now, we do have 70% residential water meters installed, and we do have that ability. I've been asking this meeting, are we looking at those stats we have? There's no point in having the stats if we're not using them and we're not enforcing based on the stats that we already have. So maybe we need to approve more staff time and money to do that? I'm not sure.
Or Steve.
So, Mr. Mayor, in respect to the proactive approach the staff is doing in bringing this forward, when we were made aware that we are 1% of the normal snowpack, and we haven't even started summer yet. We're at 1% of the normal snowpack, so we're just trying to make sure that we're aware, because in the event, in extreme situations, extreme drought is measured based on past experiences. Is California in an extreme drought? What we're not suggesting here, we're not suggesting anything to be punitive. Council can talk about these things. This is not meant to be punitive. This is meant to ensure that we are not in a position coming to you and saying, Council, you must go to stage 4 now, or you have to go to stage 3. We want to be proactive in this approach. And if this requires some more participation from the public, that's an important element. But this is not meant to be anything beyond what the science is behind the need under the Agricultural Institute for needing water for trees and plants and things like this. The ability to hand water for the food production. The other municipalities that we're dealing with, we're leading off the leading science that we have in our area through the Thompson area, which is we're part of. We're part of a desert belt one, just on the fringe of that. What we're proposing for council here is the ability for us to be proactive and also minimize the impacts on the water system as we go into this predicted hot weather. We can rescind this if we need be, but what we're doing right now is taking a proactive approach to ensure we have water for firefighting purposes, for ensuring we have water for all of the needs of the community. we're just saying, we're asking the community to, or council to consider the twice a week watering going from 3 days a week to 2 days a week.
Yeah.
That's what we're asking for here. We're not suggesting to be punitive, but we're also keeping the hand watering. We're not creating this, we're just simply providing the community the facts. These are the facts that exist in our area with the 1% snowpack of the normal snowpack. So we just want to be proactive in that approach.
To our manager of building inspections, Mr. Copan, how many violations have been reported for watering so-called against the bylaw, illegally watering against the bylaw, contraventions?
Mr. Mayor, I've probably had about a half a dozen reports, and I've been handing out notices every time I go out. I've got notices in my vehicle, and I stop by and see people whenever I see a sprinkler on. So they have been going out, but there has been no physical fines written as of yet.
So in other words, if someone is watering their gardens with a handheld device, I'm sure every citizen does not have a garden in this community. So what would you say are the percentages that were going to be brought in front of council and fined?
I really couldn't tell you. I wouldn't have a clue what it would be.
So I think it's not a big concern. Councillor Butler.
Number one, I'm just curious why this is brought as a late item to council. This is something that needed to be advertised to the public so that they could have been at this meeting. And maybe we ought to call a special meeting in the next couple days so that the public can be informed and have the ability to come and have input on this. It seems to have been snuck in as a late item so that people don't have any, I mean, it was almost passed before we even had discussion on it.
How do you figure?
And if we're not even enforcing stage 1 watering restrictions, and our engineering reports state that we can save up to 50% by enforcing regulations, let's do that first.
I think we just heard Mr. Copan say that he was enforcing those regulations.
They're not being enforced. No. There's been no fines put out for enforcing watering restrictions, and if you walk around this town any day of the week, you can see people watering. So if we start enforcing that, we will be saving a huge amount of water and maybe making some income on top of that to pay for our extra staff time.
Councillor Ross.
I'd like to move that we remain at stage 1 and enforce the stage 1 water restrictions, and we start to not only enforce it, but to start to apply the fines, and that we revisit this at our next when's our next meeting?
29th.
At the 29th. We revisit it and we consider stage 2 at that time.
Are you making that motion, Councillor Ross? May we add also to that motion to the effect of enlightening the public of a stage 2?
That could be a separate motion. Can I just make, that could be, I'd like to do a separate motion. So my first motion is that
I'd like to move, I move that we enforce stage 1 water restrictions, and that we apply the fines as according to the bylaw.
We have to vote on the first motion because the motion was there.
That is my motion.
No, the first motion about, which was put forward.
Oh.
So, all in favor, we can...
What was the first motion?
A recommendation to implement stage 2 water restriction plan.
That was the motion.
That was the motion, so if we defeat the motion, then we can move on. So, all in favor? All opposed?
It's defeated 4-2, tied.
Motion is defeated because it was tied. So now, Councillor Ross, your motion, please, repeat it.
I move that we enforce stage 1 water bylaw, stage 1 water restrictions, and that we apply the appropriate fines accordingly.
Do I have a second? Councillor Hamett. Discussion, Councillor Krug.
Okay, a couple of things. Yes, I believe that we should be taking every precaution. And if we're going from 3 days to 2 days, and that's going to kill my garden. The other thing too is I'm offended by the comment that staff was being dishonest and trying to sneak through this recommendation as a late item. I think that's totally inappropriate to say.
Councillor Thompson, then Councillor Ross.
Doesn't work. I agree with what Councillor Krog said. That's an insult to our staff. They have to bring forward the information as they get it. And I don't think that this was deliberate. I think this is just very recent. And so we have been made aware of it. With respect to Councillor Ross's motion, by defeating the twice a week watering, we are still back at stage 1. So I don't think that resolution is one that is actually necessary. And so I would ask for her consideration if she wanted to withdraw that resolution and perhaps just refer the issue to the June the 29th meeting.
Councillor Ross?
What I'm doing is I'm just trying to give teeth to a bylaw that exists. So that's all I'm doing in that motion, is just giving it teeth so that it's just not on the books and something that is ignored, that we actually have this enforced. So that was that motion, and I'm not going to lift it from the table. And then I'm going to ask that we revisit stage 2 in 2 weeks' time. And in the meantime, that we take out an advertisement in the newspaper. I move that the City of Grand Forks takes out an advertisement in the newspaper, alerting the citizens that we will be enforcing the bylaws, we will be applying the fines, and we are considering stage 2, and have it clearly stated what stage 2 is going to be look like, and we will be considering it at our next council meeting. And I don't think we need to go to public consultation on that to ask people permission. I think Maud Barlow would approve.
So can I have a vote on the first question? Councillor Ross is first. All in favor? So carried. So the second motion, I need a seconder on that one. Councillor Hamett. Any discussion on the second one? So if you may you read back the second one for clarification?
Yes.
I know part of it was to refer it back to our next meeting for stage 2.
To advertise and to refer back.
Yeah.
This is the second one.
Yeah.
The second motion is in the lines of advertising that we will be enforcing water regulation bylaw.
And what stage 2 is.
Yes.
What stage 1 and stage 2.
Direct staff to revisit stage 2 options and advertise in the newspaper with an explanation as to stage 2 water restrictions, what they look like, etc., and bring back to the June 29th meeting for discussion.
But I believe the first part was to also advertise that we will be enforcing
Yes.
the bylaw.
Okay.
Am I correct, Councillor Ross?
Yes, and that we are advertising that we are enforcing stage 1 bylaw with fines, and that we are considering going to stage 2. We're not referring it back to staff. We are going to revisit it as a council at the next meeting. But we are enforcing stage 1 with fines and considering stage 2, which looks like this. That'll be in the advertisement, and we will be considering it at our next council meeting. And don't mention public input.
It's just public notice.
So do I have a, I think we have a second on that motion, I believe. Did we have a second on that motion?
Yeah.
No. Oh, yeah, okay. So any other discussions? Councillor Butler?
I don't know if this needs to be a separate motion or included in this one, or anyways. I'd like to see the stats from the wells, how much we're pumping at this point in time, for the whole city, how much is coming out of our wells right now, how much is coming out of our wells annually, like each year, what's the average that's being pumped out at this time of year, and then I want to see that as we enforce our sprinkling regulations, and severely enforce them, actually enforce them, if that intake out of the wells drops, and to be able to compare those statistics so that we have scientific facts to go on to show that these watering restrictions are actually decreasing our usage.
Are you referring to peak times?
on a daily basis, we're able to tell how much water we've pumped out of our wells. So I'd like to know from now, day by day, as we enforce these watering restrictions, if that water amount is dropping.
That's the second motion, I think.
So do I have a seconder on that motion?
No, we're still on the first.
We've got to vote on the first one, but,
Can we call the question on,
okay, question on the first motion.
For the second motion.
All in favor? So carried. So Councillor Butler, are you making a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that staff provide council at the next meeting on June the 29th of the stats from our wells, how much is being pumped out.
We just don't have capacity. Sorry.
Is that not involved in our SCADA system, that we know how much we're pumping out of our wells?
To our CEO, how much staff time and is this going to incur?
Just, Mr. Mayor, with the additional motions as we keep piling on workload, we have to manage that workload on, like I said, under our statutory obligations. We can report back to you at the end of the season once we culminate that in a report. But I'm not going to ask I don't feel as though it would be appropriate to ask our staff to now drop what they're doing now on their programs to be able to jump into this rabbit hole, to be able to bring this stuff back. The information is important and it's pertinent, but it would form part of a report at the end of the year to understand what is happening with our water system under this climate condition, under there being 1% of the snowpack reading, so we can better understand and compare this to the annual impacts on our water system. Because our peak day is the most important day for us to deliver the customers the water in our community, and along with providing firefighting water in the community. We are running in, I'll just leave it at that, Mr. Mayor. I just think we have to be cognizant of the expectations that we put onto staff as a result of these timelines that are continually put on to be able to bring back the information, because sometimes it's unrealistic and it creates massive amounts of overtime for the organization.
I would also recommend that if we use Councillor Ross's resolution to implement fines on stage 1, it should show significant results, and I don't think we need to know gallon by gallon how much we're saving. So your motion is there. Do I have a second for it? Motion by Andy. So all in favor? All in favor? Discussion.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to our manager of operations, I'd just like to know if he has a computer program that shows him our water usage, that he's able to pull it up on his screen and to look at that on a daily basis.
Mr. Reid?
No.
Manager of operations?
No. Mr. Mayor, we do have a SCADA system. It just takes time to put all the wells and do the calculations in the report.
Councillor Ross?
I think some information is better than no information. I don't want to put more burden on staff right now. I know it is a difficult time and people are going on holidays. I'm really quite content with having really meaningful enforcement of our bylaws and revisiting going to stage 2 in the next 2 weeks and just see what happens in the next 2 weeks. But eventually, I think it is interesting to see what our water usage is. And some, I'm looking for this huge report, just a little, one-page data on, particular wells. But I don't want to put more burden on our staff, and I don't believe my 2 motions are putting more burden on the staff. I'm just saying, enforce bylaws. Let's revisit this in 2 weeks.
The lady in the second row.
Whose phone is ringing? Quite a privilege, Mr. Mayor. I'm having a hard time focusing.
So, with the motion as it stands regarding the advertisement, a resident reading it would see, okay, I gotta be careful to follow within that, but they might also have a sense of fear knowing the possible next ones, which might actually increase water use on those 3 days. That's why I was saying it might not be a fair evaluation of just the enforcing of that one. So I just wanted to say so I wouldn't evaluate enforcing stage 1 from that data, but that data would be useful for examining maybe whether you need stage 2. How are you doing with the water?
Councillor Krog.
Exactly.
Okay, I see it as the opposite. I think anybody reading that would see, oh, by the way, here's your sprinkling regulations. They will be actively enforced, and if we end up in a situation where when we end up at stage 2, so I would see it as creating even more conserving, because people don't want to end up at stage 2, not increasing the water usage. I would see it decrease the water usage if you know what the alternative is going to be. Councillor Ross.
I think sometimes we have the wrong idea here that we're punishing people, because it's not about punishing people, it's about water conservation and being mindful. And we all lived here, we know we had a decreased snowpack. We know it's hot, it's been hotter and drier earlier in the season than previous seasons. We have had good rain, but like I said before, let's behave as if we don't have an infinite amount of water in our aquifer. And this isn't a punishment, it's just mindful use and collective conservation. And I think...
Could I just make a recommendation to staff and the gallery that we could please move on as fast as possible on this, because we're on very tight timelines here. To the lady in the second row.
In the ad, if you say that, this is about water conservation, because it's just the words that you said, and this is about collectively, so, you know, that inspires everyone to do that. So this isn't, you know, you don't have to write the punishment part, but this is about being mindful of water and water conservation.
Well, maybe the city can word
That'd
it
be great.
in a way that...
Yeah, I think
Ms. Seminoff, right now, we're only putting out there that we will be enforcing stage 1 bylaws. We're not going to stage 2 yet. This is going to be at another meeting. Councillor Butler.
I just wanted to point out in one of Maud Barlow's reports, the statistics show that only 9.5% of our water usage comes from residential usage. The lion's share of water usage, over 90%, comes from agriculture and industry. And it seems like we're putting our finger in the hole in the dam while the dam's breached at the other end. I mean, we've got farmers out there pumping gallons with cannons, yet we're trying to stop this little 9.5% over here. Are we doing anything with the regional district? Are they going to be enforcing watering restrictions on the 90% of the water usage that's going on? Maybe we need to be in contact with those districts.
That's a motion.
According to my information, our CEO, Mr. Allen, we're only reflecting on the city limits.
Exactly, yeah.
We cannot control anything on the outer parameters of Area D and so on.
Can we call for the question, please?
So all in favor of the last motion, which was enforcement? I believe that was the last.
We did enforcement, this was a new one.
It was Councillor Butler had a resolution.
It was to gather data.
To gather data and provide a report back.
But you never seconded it.
But it doesn't require a second.
But needs to be voted.
Okay, so all in favor of that motion to get the data? I don't know exactly wording of that motion, but.
For staff to do
for staff to do a report on the database
usage.
I didn't want a report, I just wanted some quick stats. How much is the well using? That's it, not a report, just very quick.
Okay, so all in favor of that motion? All opposed?
At the moment. Yeah.
So the motion is defeated.
I have a late item as well.
Okay.
My report was late.
No, that's at the regular meeting.
Oh, okay.
That's at the regular meeting. We have that duly noted.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
We got live.
We got 20 out.
No, we already did that.
Our last item is the question period from the public, and I will recommend the public keep it as brief as possible, please. The gentleman in the second row.
Frank Treberry. I have a lot of questions, and I'm going to be very considerate and basically deal with one issue. The first thing I'd like to say is I'd like to express my appreciation to Council in allowing my letter dated April 28th in regard to the administrative salaries and my follow-up commentary to the May 4th Committee of the Whole meeting appear in the correspondence section of the May 25th Council agenda, thus becoming part of the public record. Unfortunately, I was out of town and unable to attend the meeting. I, however, thanks to Mr. Johnson, was able to view the proceedings on GFTV. The issues outlined in my letters were dismissed with a simple statement by Mr. Alvin that there was a statutory requirement in accordance with the Financial Information Act and that all salaries over $75,000 would be disclosed within 6 months after the end of the fiscal year. Councillor Krog was satisfied that the corporate officer's letter was sufficient. I assume Mr. Krog was referring to Ms. Heinrich's response letter informing me that, and I quote, "It is not best practice for municipalities to display contracts for public viewing. These documents often contain information that falls under the Protection of Freedom of Information and Personal Privacy Act." Mr. Krog's implication was that Ms. Heinrich was correct, and it said it all. There was no need for further discussion, and indeed, there was no discussion. It was good of you to publish my letter, but you, my council, made no attempt to address my concerns. Mr. Mayor, I would like to call to council and administrative staff's attention Section 14.8 of the Public Sector Employees Act. The most current edition that I could find is quite recent and dated April 29, 2015. Please note that Section 14.8 of the Act states, contracts of employment are public documents. I repeat, public documents. Subsection 1, a provision of a contract of employment that all or part of the contract is to remain confidential is void. Subsection 2, each senior employee's contract of employment is deemed to include a provision that the contract is a public document and the public sector employer must make the contract together with any report filed with the Chief Executive Officer of the Council in relation to it available for public inspection in accordance with this section. Subsection 3, a public sector employer must, by both of the following means, make available to the public all information in contracts of employment and reports referred to in subsection 2 that would otherwise be available to an applicant making a request under the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. 5A, posting the information on a publicly accessible website maintained by or on behalf of the public sector employer, and B, having the information available for public inspection in the office of the public sector employer during regular office hours. Mr. Mayor, the contracts were negotiated and signed. They are public, not private documents. Again, I urge Council to meet its statutory obligation and fully disclose the terms of the CAO's contract and all administrative contracts by posting them on your website and having a copy for public viewing at City Hall during regular office hours. Mr. Mayor, it is definitely my right to view them without being put through the Freedom of Information hoops that you and Mr. Allen suggested I go through at the last committee of the whole meeting. Your Worship, Council must do what it's obligated to do, fully disclose all administrative contracts. Furthermore, be proactive and publicly disclose all in-camera meetings, minutes related to any dispersal such as severance made under these contracts. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Trevor. Councillor Hamett.
I don't have a problem with releasing the contract that we've negotiated with our CAO, Doug Allen, in February. I think that once it's published, and it's never been a secret that I think it should be out there, I think the community will answer a lot of questions, and it will ease a lot of speculation in people's minds, that they'll realize that the council made a very good decision on behalf of the community. And I think not just only putting in the contract, I think a comparison contract to what the previous contract was, what the new contract is, what we would have had to pay a new CAO as opposed to what we've paid with rehiring of Mr. Allen. So I would like to make a motion that we do that comparison with the details of the contract and release it.
Councillor Butler.
What Mr. Treviere has presented is correct, and I have no doubt that it is. He's a retired teacher, he does his homework. I think we don't really have a choice. If that's what the law says, that we are to post these senior administrative contracts on our website, then that's exactly what we need to do.
Well, I don't think we do it because we have to. I think it's something that we should be doing.
Yeah.
So Councillor Butler, are you recommending, Councillor Hamett, are you recommending only Mr. Allen's or what Mr. Treviere is asking?
I'm not, well, sorry. To the first part of Mr. Berry's concern and the letter that he had written in regards to our CAO's contract. I haven't looked at all the rest of it, but I think that's the most important element at this point in time is the situation regarding the CAO's previous contract, the contract he has now, and I think that that would be a beneficial information for the public to have.
And please, if I may, say it clearly. I'm not disputing Mr. Allen's contract. I'm not disputing Mr. Allen's abilities. I'm not disputing the fact that you rehired Mr. Allen.
Yep.
What I'm trying to say is that as a citizen, I have the right to view these contracts. I understand when you're negotiating a contract, of course, you're not going to negotiate it in public. But once that contract is signed, it becomes a public document. I have the right to take a look at it. I have the right to be able to view what my tax dollars are paying.
Okay. Well, my motion was specific to Mr. Allen's contract. So if there's any other contracts, that should go in another motion. But mine was specific to Mr. Allen's contract.
Your Worship, I'd like to hear from our CEO with respect to
Sure, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So today, part of the agenda included the communications policy, and within that communications policy, Mr. Treviere's comments are perfectly in line with that. Asking what it is that the community wants to have, not only under the Act what you're required to provide, but also what else can we provide, so we're not continually going after one-off. So we understand fully what the community wants to have. So Mr. Mayor, the idea for the public input on this is, when Mr. Treviere provides his input, maybe he provides that letter in respect to that. And if it's not just the one managerial contract, it's all the managerial contracts that are on there that we, under council's policy, you make it clear that that's what you want to have on there. So when we're communicating with the public, or the public wants that information, they can simply find it. And how we dialogue with the public in that respect is there. So the Act is correct. The information and the mechanism that we get it there, we just don't want to be over here tomorrow through a resolution and there tomorrow, or another resolution tomorrow and the day after when we're undertaking these activities. It's a bit of a process. We don't have an effective communications policy right now, and that's what we're seeking the input in from council. That's what your council's asking the community for, is input on this. So this is part of the process. Provide the input into council on that, and then when we develop the policy and we have the workshop, then we'll make it clear to council what that'll look like, and then they'll workshop it back to the public. So this is exactly what, in line with what Mr. Treviere is saying.
And that's all I'm asking for, is that council have a policy. I had suggested in a letter that, again, didn't show up in the agenda, that perhaps a standing committee on governance could would be in order in terms of developing some sort of policy that you would follow, and so that the council doesn't get itself into bind where a citizen is asking a legitimate question and was actually denied. I was actually denied my right to ask that particular question because it was in-camera information and not available to me. That was the response that I received at the last meeting.
Councillor Hamett.
Well, it makes it more comfortable for us too, because then we're freely able to talk about things that we don't necessarily believe are secrets. I mean, we've put out part of the contract, but let's put out the whole contract. It's like, okay, so what part am I allowed to talk about? What aren't I allowed to talk about? So I think it it takes a lot of pressure off of the council because then they're not always having to worry about, you know, I mean, there are limited discussions that we can have with the public about what was discussed in camera, and specifically it's regarding hiring or land use or legal. But in other areas where, you know, I think that you'll see some, you're gonna see.
So as
some
mayor,
more
I
of
will
that.
be forming a standing committee based on that. So now the question, Councillor Ross?
Oh, you go ahead.
We have a question on the table. Is there still more discussion on Councillor Hamett's motion? So, for that motion, all in favor? So carried. All opposed? Councillor Thompson is opposed. Okay. Councillor Crog, are you opposed?
Yes.
Councillor Ross?
Motion to adjourn?
Okay, so the motion was defeated.
Hmm?
We were tied.
3-2.
1, 2, 3.
No.
Yes, okay, passes, sorry.
Yeah.
You said passes, there's so many hands going up and down. May I have a motion to adjourn this meeting? This meeting is adjourned.
Hang on.
Go back up.
I must call this meeting back to order. Item 12 is an in-camera resolution. From our Chief Administrative Officer, immediately following the Committee of the Whole meeting, Council will hold an in-camera meeting, and the recommendation is that Council convene an in-camera meeting as outlined under Section 90 of the Community Charter to discuss matters in a closed meeting which are subject to Section 91A, personal information about an identifiable individual who holds or is being considered for a position as an officer, employee, or agent of the municipality or another position appointed by the municipality, in Section 91E, the acquisition, disposition, or expropriation of land or improvements. If Council considers that disclosure could be reasonable, be expected to harm the interests of the municipality. And also Section 91G, litigation or potential litigation affecting the municipality, be it further resolved that the persons other than the members, officers, or other persons to whom Council may deem necessary to conduct city business will be excluded from the in-camera meeting. Motion. Councillor Thompson, all in favor? So carried. May I have a motion to adjourn, even though we already did. This meeting is adjourned.